We are having baby number 2, my sister announced, holding up a sonogram. My mother squealed with delight, clapping her hands. Then my father turned to me from across the mahogany dining table. You will break your lease tomorrow, he ordered. Ashley needs a live-in nanny, and you are not doing anything important with your life. I did not scream. I did not cry. I simply set down my wine glass, smiled at all of them, and walked out the front door. At 6:00 the next morning, my phone rang with an unknown number. Good morning, ma'am, a gruff voice said. This is the Chicago Police Department. We are executing a search warrant on a $2 million mansion in your name. My name is Kelsey, and I am 34 years old. Until that phone call, my family thought I was just a pathetic data entry clerk struggling to survive in the city. They had no idea they had just picked a fight with the CEO of a premier financial investigation firm. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to destroy the toxic family members who severely underestimated you. Growing up in the wealthy suburbs of Chicago, our family projected an image of absolute perfection to the outside world. My father, Thomas, ran his own consulting business and demanded total obedience from everyone under his roof. My mother, Brenda, treated social status like a religion, carefully curating who we associated with and how we appeared. But beneath the polished veneer of our sprawling 5-bedroom house, there was a strict, unspoken hierarchy. My younger sister, Ashley, was the undisputed golden child. She could do no wrong. I, on the other hand, was the scapegoat. I was the designated disappointment whose only purpose was to serve as a cautionary tale and make Ashley look better by comparison. The dinner that started the final war took place on a crisp Friday evening in October. My parents had summoned us to their home for what they called a mandatory family gathering. The dining room table was set with my mother's finest china and expensive crystal glasses. At the center of attention sat Ashley, now 30 years old, glowing with an artificial innocence she had perfected since childhood. Beside her was her husband, Kendrick, a 32-year-old African-American man who dressed entirely in flashy designer labels that screamed new money. Kendrick always made sure everyone in the room knew he was an entrepreneur. He talked endlessly about his vast real estate ventures and cryptocurrency investments, constantly checking his gold watch and acting as if his time was worth thousands of dollars a minute. My parents absolutely adored him. They treated him like the brilliant, wealthy son they never had, hanging on to his every word about digital assets and market trends. I sat quietly at the far end of the table, wearing a simple gray blazer, playing the part they had assigned me years ago. To them, I was just Kelsey, the spinster sister, who pushed papers at some boring, low-paying desk job. They never bothered to ask the name of my company or what my actual job title was. They preferred their narrative because it made them feel superior. We have an amazing announcement, Ashley said, her voice rising above the clinking of silverware. She reached into her expensive designer handbag and pulled out a small black and white photograph. Kendrick and I are expecting baby number 2. The reaction was immediate and explosive. My mother, Brenda, shrieked with joy, leaping from her chair to wrap her arms around Ashley. This is everything I wanted, she cried out, kissing her son-in-law on the cheek. Another beautiful grandbaby. My father, Thomas, beamed with pride, raising his glass of expensive red wine to toast the happy couple. He praised Kendrick for being such a strong provider and Ashley for being the perfect mother. The celebration went on for several minutes, a sickening display of adoration that I had witnessed 100 times before. I offered a polite congratulations, took a sip of my water, and waited for the inevitable pivot. In our family, Ashley's triumphs were always immediately followed by my punishments. Right on cue, the atmosphere in the room shifted. My father placed his wine glass down with a heavy thud. He cleared his throat, fixing his gaze directly on me. His expression transformed instantly from joyful celebration to cold, calculated authority. Now that the good news is out, we have some logistics to discuss, Thomas said, his voice echoing in the quiet dining room. Ashley is going to need a lot of help with this second pregnancy. Kendrick is heavily involved in expanding his cryptocurrency empire right now. He is closing million-dollar deals and cannot be expected to handle toddler tantrums and late-night feedings. I raised an eyebrow, keeping my face perfectly neutral. That sounds challenging for them, I said calmly. Yes, it is. My father continued, leaning forward and resting his elbows on the table. Which is why you will be breaking the lease on your apartment tomorrow. You are going to pack your things and move into the guest room at Ashley and Kendrick's house. They need a full-time nanny, and since you do not have a family of your own, you are the most logical choice. I froze, staring at him to see if this was some kind of twisted joke. It was not. He was dead serious. Excuse me, I asked, making sure I heard him correctly. You want me to give up my home to become a free babysitter? My mother scoffed, waving her hand dismissively at me from across the table. Oh, do not act so put out, Kelsey. It is not like you are giving up some glamorous life. You sit alone in a tiny apartment every single night. You should be grateful your sister is willing to let you live in her beautiful home. It will finally give you a sense of purpose. Before I could respond, Ashley leaned across the table, a cruel smirk playing on her lips. Let us be honest, Kelsey, she sneered. You are 34 years old, completely single, and working a dead-end data entry job that barely pays minimum wage. You have absolutely nothing going on. Kendrick and I are building a legacy. You are just taking up space. Kendrick chuckled, taking a slow sip of his wine. We are doing you a favor, honestly. You can save whatever pennies you make from your little desk job while you live under our roof. We will not even charge you rent provided you handle all the cooking and cleaning too. The sheer audacity of their demand was breathtaking. They honestly believed I was a worthless servant waiting to be utilized. Ashley continued her verbal assault, eagerly bringing up the history they loved to weaponize against me at every opportunity. You owe this family, Ashley stated, crossing her arms over her chest defensively. Mom and Dad paid $200,000 for my communications degree because they knew I had a bright future. They did not pay a single dime for your tuition because they knew it would be a complete waste of an investment. You had to take out those pathetic student loans and work night shifts at a greasy diner just to get through that cheap state college. You have been a drain on their energy your whole life. It is time you finally paid them back for raising you. I looked at my mother. She was nodding in enthusiastic agreement with every toxic word Ashley said. I looked at my father. He was staring at me with a hard, expectant glare, waiting for me to bow my head and accept my marching orders. They truly believed they held all the power in this room. They thought they were dealing with the same scared, exhausted girl they had financially cut off over a decade ago. They did not know that the cheap state college degree had led me to become a certified fraud examiner. They did not know that my boring desk job was actually my own forensic accounting firm, where I commanded hundreds of dollars an hour tracking down hidden assets for corporate billionaires. And they certainly did not know that sitting across from them was a woman who investigated financial criminals for a living. I looked at Kendrick, noticing the slight fraying on the stitching of his supposedly custom suit. I noticed the way his eyes darted nervously whenever money was discussed in concrete terms. A forensic accountant notices everything. I did not argue. I did not justify my existence or defend my career. I simply reached into my purse, pulled out a crisp $100 bill, and placed it neatly next to my untouched plate. That is for my portion of the dinner, I said, my voice steady and ice cold. Congratulations on the baby. Good luck with the empire. I stood up, pushed my chair in, and walked out the front door without looking back, leaving them in stunned silence. The war had just begun. The silence in the dining room is absolute, heavy, and suffocating. Thomas waits for my compliance. He expects me to nod submissively, to pack my bags, to surrender my independence, just as I always did when I was a terrified teenager. But I am no longer that frightened girl. I look directly into his eyes, ignoring the heavy tension pressing down on the room, and deliver a single unwavering word. No. My father blinks, his face instantly turning a dangerous shade of crimson. He slams his palm flat against the mahogany table, making the fine china and crystal glasses rattle violently. What did you just say to me? he demands, his voice dropping into a low, threatening growl. I said no, I repeat, keeping my posture perfectly straight, my voice steady and ice cold. I will not be breaking my lease. I will not be moving into a guest room. And I certainly will not be working as an unpaid nanny, so Kendrick can pretend to be a cryptocurrency mogul. Brenda erupts from her chair like a coiled spring. Her face contorts with a rage so profound it distorts her carefully applied makeup. How dare you speak to your father that way, she shrieks, pointing a trembling manicured finger across the table. We are offering you a lifeline. We are giving your pathetic empty existence some actual meaning, and you throw it back in our faces. You are an absolute disgrace to this family. She paces around her chair, her voice growing louder and more vicious with every step. You have always been a difficult, ungrateful child, and now you are just a bitter, aging woman. Look at you. You are 34 years old, entirely alone and miserably jealous of your younger sister. You cannot stand the fact that Ashley has a loving husband, a beautiful home, and a growing family, while you have absolutely nothing to show for your life. You are a failure, Kelsey. Ashley immediately weaponizes my mother's anger. She covers her face with her hands, forcing out loud, theatrical sobs that echo through the room. She always does this to me, Ashley wails, leaning heavily against Kendrick's shoulder. She cannot just be happy for my baby. She has to ruin my special night because she is so miserable with her own life. She has always hated me because I got the life she wanted. Kendrick wraps a protective arm around his sobbing wife, shooting me a look of pure, arrogant disgust. You are making a huge mistake, Kelsey, he sneers, shaking his head slowly as if dealing with an unruly child. I was willing to let you live in my luxury property rent-free. I was going to let you be around real money, real success. Most people would kill for the opportunity to network with someone at my level. You are just going to stay stuck at the bottom forever, punching keys at some nobody firm because you do not know how to recognize a golden opportunity. I look at Kendrick's supposed luxury. As a forensic accountant, my eyes automatically scan for inconsistencies. I notice the car key fob sitting casually next to his plate. It is a standard lease model, not an ownership key. I notice the slight uneven scuff marks on his supposedly exclusive designer loafers, indicating they are cheap, mass-produced replicas. I see the tension in his jaw when he talks about his investments. He talks about millions, but his body language screams financial desperation. He is a walking red flag, a fragile house of cards waiting to collapse, and my parents are completely blinded by his flashy talk. But I do not waste my breath trying to warn them. I do not defend my career or explain that my firm handles corporate audits worth tens of millions of dollars. They have made their choices, and they have made it abundantly clear where I stand in their hierarchy. You are throwing away your only chance to be part of this family. Thomas barks, standing up to join my mother. You think you are so independent. You think that little desk job of yours makes you special. You are a nobody, Kelsey. Without us, without your sister's generosity, you will always be a nobody. Brenda marches closer, stopping just inches from my face. Her eyes are wide with fury. If you walk out that door tonight, do not ever come back. She snarls, her voice dripping with venom. If you turn your back on your sister when she needs you, you are dead to me. You will die alone in whatever cheap rented dump you live in, and we will not shed a single tear for you. We will focus our love and our resources on the daughter who actually deserves it. I do not flinch. I do not shed a single tear. The emotional manipulation that used to crush my spirit now feels entirely powerless. I look at my mother, then at my father, and finally at Ashley, who has stopped fake crying just long enough to watch me with a triumphant smirk. I simply reach into my designer handbag, a custom piece that costs more than Kendrick's entire fake wardrobe combined, and pull out a crisp $100 bill. I place it gently on the table next to my untouched plate, smoothing out the edges with deliberate, agonizing slowness. That should cover my portion of the catering, I say, my voice completely devoid of emotion. I will not be needing your lifelines, and I certainly do not need your pity. Enjoy your illusion. I turn my back on them and walk toward the front door. The heavy silence in the dining room shatters instantly. Brenda starts screaming my name, hurling insults that echo off the high ceilings. Thomas yells that I am ungrateful, a complete failure who will come crawling back begging for forgiveness. I hear Ashley loudly proclaiming that I am a toxic, jealous spinster who deserves to be miserable. I do not stop. I do not look back. I push open the heavy oak door and step out into the cool, crisp Chicago night. The cold air hits my face, bringing a sudden, intense wave of clarity. I walk down the long driveway, the sound of their screaming fading behind the thick walls of their house. I get into my car, start the engine, and drive away from the toxic chains that have bound me for 34 years. I drive through the city streets, watching the streetlights blur past, feeling an overwhelming sense of liberation. I am finally free from their judgment, free from their impossible standards, free from their delusional world. I go to sleep that night in my penthouse apartment, feeling completely untouchable. But the universe has a strange way of escalating conflicts. Because at exactly 6 o'clock the next morning, my phone vibrates loudly on the nightstand. I groan, reaching for the receiver, expecting a client emergency. Instead, an unknown number flashes across the screen. I answer it, my voice heavy with sleep. "Good morning, ma'am," a gruff, authoritative voice says through the speaker. "This is the police department. We are currently executing a search warrant on a $2 million property registered in your name. We have reason to believe the premises are being used to facilitate a major money laundering operation." I sit up instantly, the blood freezing in my veins. My mind races, trying to process the impossible words. I do not own a $2 million property. I state this clearly and firmly into the receiver, my bare feet grounded against the cold hardwood floor of my bedroom. I am standing in my penthouse in downtown Chicago. I have lived at this exact address for the past 4 years. You have made a mistake, officer. The voice on the other end does not waver. "I assure you there is no mistake," he replies, his tone completely flat and professional. "Am I speaking with Kelsey? I need you to confirm your date of birth and the last 4 digits of your social security number." I recite the information automatically, my analytical mind already racing to identify the error. As the CEO of a forensic accounting firm, I deal with banking errors, clerical mistakes, and corporate discrepancies every single day. I assume someone with a similar name has triggered a false flag in a police database. "Thank you," the man says. "This is Detective Reynolds with the Financial Crimes Division. I am currently standing in the foyer of a luxury estate in the northern suburbs. According to the deed recorded with the county clerk, the primary mortgage holder signed the papers exactly 8 months ago. The utility bills, the property tax records, and the home insurance policies are all registered under your name and your social security number." My breathing stops. The city skyline outside my floor-to-ceiling windows suddenly seems to blur. 8 months ago. Detective Reynolds continues, the gravity of his words hitting me like physical blows. "We are executing a federal search warrant regarding a massive money laundering scheme. This property is heavily leveraged. There are multiple defaulted lines of credit attached to this address. We found ledgers indicating that the house is being used as a front for a fraudulent cryptocurrency investment firm. We are seizing assets as we speak." Cryptocurrency. The word echoes in my brain, sharp and blindingly bright. My mind instantly snaps back to the dining room table from just a few hours ago. I see Kendrick sitting there in his cheap designer knockoffs, casually bragging about his cryptocurrency empire. I see his arrogant smile as he offered to let me live rent-free in his beautiful home provided I acted as his unpaid servant. I drop my phone onto the bed, put it on speaker, and sprint across the hall into my home office. I slam my hands onto my desk, waking up my triple-monitor workstation. My fingers fly across the mechanical keyboard. I do not just check my standard bank accounts. I log directly into the high-level credit monitoring software I use for my corporate clients. I bypass the standard security protocols and pull a comprehensive real-time audit of my own global financial footprint. The loading bar spins on the screen. The silence in my apartment is deafening, broken only by the sound of Detective Reynolds asking if I'm still on the line. "I am here, detective," I say, my voice tight. Give me the exact address of the property you are raiding. He rattles off a street name in one of the most exclusive, expensive zip codes in the state. It is the exact same neighborhood where Ashley and Kendrick supposedly bought their dream home last year. The loading screen on my monitor disappears, replaced by my complete financial history. I stare at the glaring red numbers flashing across my primary display. My stomach violently twists into a tight knot. My perfect, pristine credit score, a score I protected fiercely for over a decade, has been completely decimated. I scroll down the list of active accounts. It is a bloodbath of financial ruin. There is a mortgage for $1.8 million. There are 3 separate luxury vehicle leases totaling over $200,000. There are 5 maxed-out premium credit cards carrying balances of $80,000 each. Every single one of these fraudulent accounts is flagged for severe delinquency. Someone has been bleeding my identity dry for the past 8 months, destroying my financial future while living a life of absolute luxury. Detective Reynolds speaks again, his voice cutting through my shock. The current occupants of the house are causing a disturbance, he explains over the sound of shouting in the background. A man named Kendrick and his pregnant wife. They claim they are merely leasing the property from you. They are stating that you are the sole owner and solely responsible for the fraudulent shell companies registered to this address. Kendrick just handed my officers a lease agreement with your forged signature on it. The audacity of the crime leaves me momentarily speechless. Kendrick did not just steal my identity to buy a house. He intentionally set me up to take the fall for his federal crimes. He structured the entire Ponzi scheme so that when the authorities inevitably came knocking, the paper trail would lead directly to me. And then the final, most devastating piece of the puzzle clicks into place. In order to bypass the aggressive security freezes I placed on my credit files years ago, someone would have needed intimate, highly specific knowledge of my life. They would have needed my physical birth certificate. They would have needed the answers to my private security questions. The name of my first pet. The street I grew up on. My mother's maiden name. I remember a Sunday afternoon exactly 9 months ago. My mother Brenda had insisted on visiting my apartment, claiming she wanted to reconnect. She had asked to use my home office to print some recipes while I was cooking lunch in the kitchen. I had left her alone in the room where I keep my locked filing cabinet. A cabinet she knew the combination to because it was my childhood locker code. She did not visit me to reconnect. She came to my home to steal my identity. She handed my entire financial existence over to a con artist just so her golden child could play house in a $2 million mansion. I do not cry. The initial wave of shock evaporates instantly, replaced by a cold, calculating, and terrifying rage. They thought they were dealing with the weak, compliant daughter they threw away. They thought I was just a clueless data entry clerk who would get scared, take the blame, and quietly go to prison to protect the family name. They have no idea that they just handed their financial execution over to a woman who destroys corrupt corporations for a living. I stare at the fraudulent loans on my screen. I trace the routing numbers attached to Kendrick's fake cryptocurrency accounts. My forensic accounting brain isolates the data points, instantly building a digital net around his entire miserable operation. I see exactly how he structured his fraud, and I see exactly how I am going to tear his life apart piece by piece. Detective Reynolds. I say, my voice dropping into a register of absolute terrifying calm. Do not let Kendrick or Ashley leave that property. I am not a data entry clerk. I am the chief executive officer of a forensic auditing firm. I am a victim of felony identity theft, and I know exactly who orchestrated this entire scheme. I grab my keys, my coat, and my encrypted hard drive. I am calling my lead defense counsel right now. I continue walking purposefully toward my front door. We are coming straight to the precinct. Have your fraud division prepare their systems. I am bringing you the digital footprints, the routing numbers, and the entire financial trail of the man standing in that foyer. By the time I am done today, Kendrick will be begging you to lock him in a cell. I end the call. The family dynamic is dead. The gloves are off. I am going to burn their fraudulent empire to the ground, and I am going to make sure they watch the flames. The sliding glass doors of the Chicago Police Department precinct offer a stark contrast to the luxury high-rise I just left. The air inside smells of stale coffee and industrial floor wax. I do not walk in like a terrified suspect. I walk in like the chief executive I am. Flanking my right side is Donovan, my lead corporate defense attorney, carrying a leather briefcase that costs more than the cheap designer knockoffs Kendrick loves to flaunt. Detective Reynolds is waiting for us in a cramped interrogation room at the end of a long, fluorescent-lit hallway. He looks exhausted, rubbing the bridge of his nose as we take our seats at the scarred metal table. He slides a massive, sprawling stack of financial documents across the surface. "This is the paper trail we secured from the property," Reynolds says, tapping the thick manila folder. "I need you to look at these signatures." I open the folder and my highly trained eyes immediately begin dissecting the financial carnage. As a forensic accountant, I track money laundering for multinational corporations. The scheme laid out before me is breathtakingly brazen, but fundamentally sloppy. Kendrick did not just forge a few documents to buy a house. He weaponized my entire financial existence. For the past decade, I have meticulously built a flawless credit score of 815. I have zero debt, significant liquid assets, and an impeccable banking history. Kendrick, with his history of failed ventures and non-existent credit, could never secure a loan for a $2 million suburban mansion. So he simply stole mine. I flip through the mortgage application. The signature at the bottom is a pathetic imitation of my handwriting. Kendrick used my social security number, my past tax returns, and my banking history to secure the primary loan. But he did not stop there. He created 3 separate limited liability companies listing me as the primary shareholder and chief executive. He used my pristine financial standing to open premium corporate accounts. Then he funneled millions of dollars from his fraudulent cryptocurrency investors directly into those shell companies. He used my identity as a human shield, I state, my voice devoid of any panic. He structured this entire Ponzi scheme so that when the federal government inevitably came looking for the missing millions, the entire digital footprint would lead straight to my apartment. He and my sister get to live in a $2 million mansion, drive luxury leased vehicles, and play rich, while I am legally positioned as the mastermind of a federal wire fraud operation. Donovan leans forward, his tone sharp and authoritative. "My client is a victim of felony identity theft. We are turning over encrypted drives containing her real-time financial audits. We can prove exactly when and where her identity was compromised. We are pressing full criminal charges." Reynolds nods, his expression grim. "I believe you. The problem is, your sister and her husband are currently in the holding area down the hall. They are sticking to a very different narrative. They are claiming this is all a massive family misunderstanding. They say you bought the house as an investment property and generously allowed them to lease it. They are trying to spin the investor fraud as clerical errors in your corporate filings. They actually requested to speak with you to clear this up. Bring them in, I say, immediately." Donovan shoots me a warning glance, but I hold my ground. "I want to look them in the eye," I tell the detective. "I want them to say it to my face." Reynolds sighs, stands up, and leaves the room. A few minutes later, the heavy metal door swings open. Kendrick walks in first. Without his flashy gold chains and expensive props, he looks incredibly small. His designer tracksuit is wrinkled, and his usual arrogant swagger has been replaced by a tense, nervous energy. Ashley follows close behind him, clutching her pregnant belly protectively. Her face is streaked with ruined mascara, and she is already deploying her favorite weapon. She is sobbing loudly, playing the terrified victim. "Kelsey, thank God you are here." Ashley wails, rushing toward the table, but stopping when Donovan steps firmly in her path. "You have to tell them this is a mistake. Tell the police we are just your tenants. Kendrick's investors are just confused about the market downturn. You have to fix this. You cannot let them do this to me while I am carrying your niece." I do not stand up. I remain perfectly still, folding my hands on top of the forged mortgage documents. "Fix this," I repeat, letting the words hang in the sterile air of the interrogation room. You want me to tell a police detective that I willingly purchased a $2 million mansion, leased it to you for pennies, and accidentally committed multi-million-dollar wire fraud through fake cryptocurrency shell companies? Kendrick puffs out his chest, trying to salvage his shattered ego. Look, Kelsey, do not make this a bigger deal than it is. It is just some creative financing. I am a legitimate entrepreneur. The market dipped and the feds are overreacting. We are family. You have the clean record. You can take the heat for a little while until I get my funds unthawed. You do not even have a husband or kids to worry about. Just sign the paperwork they want and we can all go home. The sheer entitlement radiating from him is repulsive. He truly believes I am nothing more than a disposable asset, a sacrificial lamb engineered to absorb the consequences of his greed. He thinks my life has so little value that spending years in a federal prison is a reasonable favor to ask. I look at my younger sister, the golden child who has spent her entire life mocking my career, calling me a spinster and treating me like a failure. She is staring at me with wide, expectant eyes, genuinely waiting for me to sacrifice my freedom to save her luxurious lifestyle. I am going to explain exactly what is going to happen today. I say, my voice slicing through the room like a scalpel. I am not your landlord. I am not your business partner. I am the CEO of a forensic accounting firm, and I have spent the last hour tracing every single stolen dollar you funneled through my stolen identity. Ashley gasps, taking a step backward, as the reality of my words finally pierces her delusion. You are going to be indicted for identity theft, bank fraud, and federal wire fraud. I continue staring directly into Kendrick's terrified eyes. You used my mother to steal my social security number. You forged my signature on federal banking documents. You stole millions from innocent people to fund your pathetic illusion of wealth. I am handing all my evidence over to the FBI. I am not going to fix this for you. I am going to be the prime witness for the prosecution that puts you in a federal penitentiary. Kendrick lunges forward, his face twisting with sudden explosive rage, but Reynolds and another officer are instantly there, grabbing him by the shoulders and slamming him back against the cinderblock wall. Ashley screams, clutching her stomach and begging me to stop, begging me to remember that we are blood. Blood does not steal my identity, I say coldly, as the officers drag Kendrick out the door. Blood does not frame me for federal crimes. Enjoy the consequences of your creative financing. I turn away from my screaming sister and look at Detective Reynolds. We have work to do, Detective. Let me show you exactly how he hid the money. The drive from the Chicago Police Precinct to my parents' house takes exactly 42 minutes. I do not let Donovan drive me. I grip the steering wheel of my car with bone-white knuckles, my mind replaying the sickening reality of what just unfolded in that interrogation room. Kendrick is currently sitting in a federal holding cell, but he is only the symptom of the disease. The real infection is sitting in a pristine, sunlit kitchen in the suburbs. I bypass the doorbell and use the emergency key I have kept on my keyring for 10 years. I push open the heavy front door and march straight down the hardwood hallway. My parents are exactly where I expect them to be. My father, Thomas, is sitting at the massive granite kitchen island, casually scrolling through his tablet in his expensive golf polo. My mother, Brenda, is standing by the espresso machine, humming softly as she arranges a vase of fresh white hydrangeas. It is a picture of absolute undisturbed suburban tranquility. They look like a couple who do not have a single care in the world. I walk into the kitchen and slam the thick folder of forged financial documents onto the center of the granite island. The heavy slap of the paper echoes like a gunshot. Brenda jumps, spilling coffee on the pristine white counter. Thomas violently jerks his head up, his face instantly twisting into a scowl of profound annoyance. "What is wrong with you?" Thomas barks, slamming his tablet face down. "You do not just barge into our home like a wild animal. Have you lost your mind entirely?" I ignore him completely. I walk around the island until I am standing directly in front of my mother. I lock my eyes onto hers. Kendrick is in a federal holding cell, I state, my voice dropping into a register of absolute icy calm. The police just raided the $2 million mansion he and Ashley have been living in. He is currently facing charges for wire fraud, bank fraud, and felony identity theft. He stole my social security number and forged my signature on multiple federal loans to fund a cryptocurrency Ponzi scheme. I wait for the shock. I wait for the horror to wash over my mother's face. I wait for my father to jump out of his chair demanding to know how his precious son-in-law could commit such a heinous crime against his own flesh and blood. Any normal parent would be absolutely devastated. Any normal mother would collapse in tears, horrified that her child had been financially violated. Brenda does not gasp. She does not cry. She simply sets her coffee mug down, picks up a microfiber cloth, and calmly begins wiping the spilled coffee off the counter. Well, she sighs, sounding incredibly inconvenienced. I suppose we knew the authorities might overreact eventually. Kendrick said the market was just going through a temporary correction. You really should not have involved the police, Kelsey. You always make a massive spectacle out of absolutely nothing. My brain halts. The air leaves my lungs. I stare at the woman who gave birth to me, trying to comprehend the sheer, unadulterated sociopathy radiating from her casual posture. Overreact. I repeat, my voice trembling with a rage so pure it feels radioactive. Mom, he stole my identity. He took out almost $2 million in fraudulent mortgages and corporate credit lines under my name. I slam my hand onto the folder pointing directly at the signature page. He could not have done this alone. He is a pathetic amateur. He needed my physical documents to bypass the biometric security freezes on my credit file. He needed my past tax returns. He needed my original birth certificate. He needed the answers to my security questions that only a direct family member would know. I take a step closer to Brenda, my eyes burning into hers. How did he get my tax files? Mom, Thomas scoffs from his seat, crossing his arms over his chest. Do not use that aggressive tone with your mother in this house, he commands. You are acting like a hysterical child. Brenda finishes wiping the counter. She tosses the cloth into the sink, turns around and looks me dead in the eye. There is no guilt. There is no shame. There is only a profound sense of self-righteous irritation. I gave them to him, she states. The words hang in the air, sucking the oxygen out of the room. I stare at her, my mind struggling to process the magnitude of the betrayal. You gave them to him, I whisper. Brenda rolls her eyes, clearly exasperated by my reaction. Yes, Kelsey, I gave him the files. Do you remember when I visited your apartment 9 months ago? You were so busy cooking lunch in the kitchen that you did not even notice I was in your home office. You used the exact same combination for your filing cabinet that you used for your middle school locker. It was not exactly a high-security heist. I simply opened the drawer, took your previous tax returns and your spare birth certificate, and slipped them into my purse. I feel physically sick. I grip the edge of the granite island to keep my knees from buckling. You robbed my home, I say, my voice cracking under the weight of the realization. You broke into my locked files and handed my entire financial existence over to a con artist. Why? Because Ashley needed a house. Brenda snaps, her voice rising in defense. Kendrick had a tiny issue with his credit history. Nothing major, just a few missed payments from his early 20s. The banks were being completely unreasonable about approving a mortgage for the neighborhood Ashley deserved to live in. She was pregnant with her first baby. She needed a safe, beautiful home to raise my grandchild. You have an immaculate credit score that you do absolutely nothing with. You sit in an apartment alone. It was entirely selfish of you to hoard that financial privilege when your sister needed it to build her family. I look at my father. He is nodding slowly, entirely in agreement with my mother's deranged logic. We are a family, Thomas chimes in, his tone dripping with condescension. Kendrick is a brilliant businessman on the verge of a massive breakthrough. He just needed a temporary cosigner to get his operations off the ground. We knew you would throw a selfish fit if we asked you nicely, so your mother took the initiative to secure Ashley's future. It is what families do, Kelsey. We share our resources. Resources, I spit the word out like venom. I am not a resource. I am your daughter. You stole my identity. You committed a federal crime to subsidize a fraud. Kendrick is not a brilliant businessman. He is a criminal who is currently being interrogated by the FBI, and he is going to point the finger directly at you to save his own skin. Brenda waves her hand dismissively, completely detached from reality. Oh, stop being so dramatic. Kendrick has lawyers. He will sort out this little audit issue with his investors. And as for the house, you should be honored that your name is on the deed of such a magnificent property. You are blowing this completely out of proportion because you are jealous of Ashley. You have always been jealous of her happiness. The sheer audacity is paralyzing. They do not view me as a human being. They view me as a battery, a financial battery that exists solely to be drained for the benefit of their golden child. The betrayal is so absolute, so profoundly deep, that it instantly severs any remaining emotional tie I have to these people. I look at Brenda's perfect hair, her expensive clothes, and the smug, unapologetic look on her face. I realize in this exact moment that I owe them nothing. I do not owe them my loyalty. I do not owe them my protection. And I certainly do not owe them my mercy. The silence that follows my realization is not born of shock, but of a chilling, absolute clarity. I am standing in the impeccably clean kitchen of my childhood home, looking at the two people who brought me into this world, and I finally see them for exactly what they are. They are not misguided parents. They are predators. Before I can articulate the profound disgust boiling in my chest, Thomas steps forward. He closes the distance between us, his tall frame looming over me. For my entire life, this physical intimidation tactic worked. It made me shrink. It made me apologize. But today, I do not move a single muscle. I hold my ground, staring up into his furious, self-righteous eyes. You need to lower your voice and listen to reason, Kelsey, my father barks, his face mere inches from mine. You are acting like a hysterical woman who has lost all sense of perspective. You are deliberately trying to destroy your sister's family over a temporary financial hiccup, and I absolutely will not allow it in this house. A temporary financial hiccup, I repeat the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Dad, we are talking about federal wire fraud. Kendrick stole millions of dollars. Thomas slams his hand flat against the granite island again, silencing me. He did not steal anything. He roars, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. Kendrick is a visionary. He is managing high-yield digital assets in a volatile market. His capital is just temporarily tied up in offshore exchanges. He needed liquidity to secure his investments and provide a safe environment for his pregnant wife. You have an immaculate credit profile that you literally do nothing with. You sit in an empty apartment all day. Your mother simply utilized an idle family asset to help your brother-in-law bridge a gap. That is what families do. They step up when called upon. I stare at him, entirely mesmerized by the sheer magnitude of his delusion. You consider my social security number an idle family asset. Thomas ignores my question, plowing forward with a sickeningly calculated plan. Here is exactly what is going to happen, he commands, pointing a rigid finger at my chest. You are going to march right back into that police precinct, and you are going to tell that detective that you made a mistake. You will tell them that you authorized the creation of those corporate entities. You will say that you purchased the house as an investment, and that Kendrick was merely acting as your authorized property manager. My jaw drops. You want me to confess to federal crimes I did not commit. You want me to tell the FBI that I am the mastermind of a Ponzi scheme. Do not use dramatic buzzwords like Ponzi scheme, Brenda chimes in from the sink, crossing her arms defensively. You just need to tell them you made some poor investment choices. People make bad investments all the time, Kelsey. It is not the end of the world. Thomas nods in fierce agreement. Exactly. You go in there, you claim responsibility for the corporate structure, and you get Kendrick out of that holding cell immediately. Ashley is at home right now, pregnant with her second child, completely traumatized because her sister decided to throw a jealous tantrum. Kendrick needs to be released today so he can get back to his office and untangle his funds. And what happens to me, I ask, my voice dropping into a dangerous, icy whisper. What happens when the federal government prosecutes me for stealing millions of dollars? What happens when I am indicted? Thomas waves his hand in the air, dismissing my freedom as if it is a minor logistical error. Oh, please. You have no criminal record. You will hire a decent lawyer, plead guilty to a white-collar misdemeanor, and pay a fine. So what if your credit score takes a hit? So what if you have to declare bankruptcy? Let us look at the reality of your situation, Kelsey. You are 34 years old. You have no husband. You have no children. You have no legacy to protect. A ruined credit score is not going to kill you. You do not need pristine financials because you are not building a family. The cruelty of his words is perfectly engineered, designed to hit every insecurity they spent decades installing in my brain. He truly believes my life has zero value because I do not fit their narrow, outdated definition of success. And what about my career? I push further, wanting to hear the absolute depths of his depravity. What happens to my job when I am a convicted felon? You work a meaningless desk job, Brenda scoffs loudly. You can find another data entry position anywhere. Or you can just work retail for a few years until the bankruptcy falls off your record. You are completely overreacting. Thomas softens his tone, adopting a sickeningly patronizing voice. He thinks he is being benevolent. He thinks he is offering me salvation. Listen to me, Kelsey. We are not completely heartless. We know taking this on will be a slight disruption to your routine. If the bank sees your assets, or if you lose your apartment because of the bankruptcy, your mother and I are willing to help you out. He pauses, puffing out his chest with absolute pride. We will let you move into the finished basement here, rent-free. You can stay down there until you get back on your feet. In exchange, you can help your mother with the housekeeping, and you can drive over to Ashley's house to help with the new baby since Kendrick will be busy rebuilding his portfolio. It is a very generous offer, Kelsey. It gives you a roof over your head and a chance to finally be useful to this family. I look from my father's arrogant, expectant face to my mother's smug, satisfied smirk. They have completely mapped out my destruction. They have choreographed my financial and personal ruin, and they expect me to thank them for the privilege of living in their basement as an indentured servant. They want me to trade my penthouse, my multi-million-dollar firm, and my freedom all to shield a pathetic con artist who bought his shoes on clearance. I do not scream. I do not cry. The sheer absurdity of their manipulation completely extinguishes any residual anger I felt. It is replaced by a profound clinical detachment. I am no longer looking at my parents. I am looking at two accomplices to a federal crime who have just verbally confessed their intent to obstruct justice. They think I am trapped. They think I am going to break. They have absolutely no idea that my phone resting quietly in my coat pocket has been recording every single word of this despicable conversation since the moment I walked through their front door. I look around the pristine kitchen, taking in the gleaming granite countertops and the expensive stainless steel appliances. I look at my father standing tall and arrogant, genuinely believing he has just handed me a generous lifeline. I look at my mother, who is already nodding, mentally checking off a box now that the unpleasantness is supposedly handled. They truly believe I am going to pack my bags, confess to federal wire fraud, and move into their damp basement like an obedient, terrified child. I slowly slide my right hand into the pocket of my wool coat. My fingers wrap tightly around the cool metal of my smartphone. I pull it out and tap the screen. A sharp, distinct beep echoes through the quiet kitchen. Thomas frowns, his eyes darting to the device in my hand. "What are you doing?" he demands, his voice tight with sudden creeping suspicion. I hold the phone up, displaying the audio recording interface brightly illuminated on the screen. The timer reads 22 minutes and 14 seconds. I just captured every single word of this fascinating family meeting. I state, my voice perfectly level and entirely devoid of fear. I recorded you, Mom, explicitly admitting that you broke into my locked filing cabinet to steal my tax returns and my original birth certificate. I recorded you, Dad, instructing me to lie to a federal agent, to obstruct an ongoing FBI investigation, and to falsely confess to a multi-million-dollar financial crime just to save your fraudulent son-in-law. Brenda gasps, her hand flying to her throat. Her perfectly manicured nails dig sharply into her skin. "You recorded us!" She stammers, her face draining of all color until she looks sickly pale. "You cannot do that. That is a massive violation of our privacy in our own home." I smile, a slow, predatory expression that makes my father actually take a physical step backward. Illinois is a one-party consent state for audio recordings. I explain using the precise legal terminology I deal with every single day in corporate litigation. As long as one person in the conversation knows it is being recorded, the audio is completely admissible in a court of law. And since I am the one holding the phone, this entire confession is perfectly legal and ready for the prosecutor. Thomas lunges forward, his face twisting into an ugly mask of pure, unadulterated rage. "Give me that phone right now," he roars, reaching violently for my hand. "You ungrateful brat! I will smash that thing into 1,000 pieces." I take a swift step back, easily dodging his grasping hands. "Do not even think about touching me," I warn, my voice dropping into a deadly register. "This audio file is already synced and backed up to my highly encrypted corporate cloud server. Smashing the physical device will do absolutely nothing to save you. You just handed the federal authorities all the evidence they need to indict both of you for conspiracy to commit identity theft and obstruction of justice." The color completely drains from my father's face. He freezes, his hand suspended awkwardly in mid-air, the crushing realization of his legal peril finally piercing his thick skull. Brenda starts crying, real panicked tears this time. She takes a shaky step toward me. "Kelsey, please," she begs, her voice cracking. "We are your parents. You cannot give that audio to the police. We would lose the house. We would lose everything. We would go to jail. You stopped being my parents the moment you decided my freedom was worth less than a con artist's fake cryptocurrency empire," I reply coldly. "You made your choices. You decided I was just a disposable asset. Now you get to experience the severe consequences of your actions." I turn on my heel and walk away. I do not run. I march down the hallway with deliberate, measured steps. My father screams my name, his voice echoing off the walls, alternating between furious threats and desperate, pathetic pleas. I ignore him completely. I push open the heavy front door, step out into the freezing Chicago air, and let the door slam shut behind me permanently, severing the toxic cord that has bound me to this family for over 3 decades. I walk down the long driveway, my heels clicking sharply against the pavement. The cold wind bites at my cheeks, but I feel an absolute fiery determination burning in my chest. I unlock my car, slide into the driver's seat, and lock the doors. My hands are not shaking. My breathing is completely steady. The emotional manipulation is dead. It is time to go to work. I start the engine, but I do not shift into drive. Instead, I connect my phone to the car Bluetooth system and dial a number I know by heart. The phone rings twice before a sharp, hyper-professional voice answers. "Good morning, Kelsey," my executive assistant Grace says through the speakers. "I was not expecting to hear from you until the quarterly review meeting this afternoon. Is everything all right?" "Grace," I say, staring at the imposing facade of my parents' house through the windshield. "Cancel all my meetings for the next 48 hours. Cancel the client lunches. Reschedule the board calls. I need you to initiate a total firm-wide mobilization." Grace pauses for only a fraction of a second. She knows my tone. She knows exactly what a firm-wide mobilization means at our agency. "Consider the schedule entirely cleared," she responds immediately, the rapid clicking of her mechanical keyboard already audible in the background. "What is the target?" "The target is a man named Kendrick," I state, pulling up the fraudulent corporate filings on my secure mobile app. "He is an African-American male operating a series of shell companies out of the northern suburbs. He claims to be running a high-yield cryptocurrency investment fund, but the preliminary data shows it is a textbook Ponzi scheme. He is using stolen identities, specifically mine, to secure massive fraudulent commercial loans to fund his lavish lifestyle." Grace lets out a low, impressed whistle. "A crypto Ponzi scheme layered with synthetic identity fraud. The feds are going to want this one handed to them on a silver platter." "Yes, they are," I confirm, a fierce smile touching the corners of my mouth. And we are going to be the exact firm that delivers it to them. I want you to activate our entire forensic accounting division immediately. Pull our top-tier financial analysts off their current corporate accounts. I want a full aggressive scorched earth sweep of Kendrick's entire digital footprint. I take a deep breath, laying out the battle plan. I want his banking records traced across every domestic and international institution. I want his offshore accounts unmasked and decoded. I want every single transaction, every fake ledger, and every fraudulent wire transfer decrypted and meticulously mapped out. Do not leave a single digital stone unturned. Check his associates, his property deeds, his fake luxury car leases. I want to know where every single stolen penny went. Grace types furiously, matching my intense energy. The entire floor is on it, Kelsey. We will tear his books apart transaction by transaction. How deep do you want us to dig? I look back at the house one last time, watching my father nervously pacing past the living room window, panicking about his impending doom. I want you to dig until you hit the absolute bedrock of his miserable, fraudulent life, I reply, my voice echoing with icy resolve in the quiet car. He made the fatal mistake of stealing the identity of a woman who hunts financial criminals for a living. Build the most airtight, devastating audit report this firm has ever produced. I want the exact routing numbers he used to steal money from his elderly victims. I want the forged signature logs isolated and verified. I want it all packaged, cross-referenced, and ready for the federal prosecutors by tomorrow morning. I shift my car into drive, my grip on the steering wheel firm and unyielding. Kendrick thought he could use me as his sacrificial lamb. He thought he could exploit my pristine credit and leave me to rot in a jail cell while he played billionaire. Tell the team they are authorized for unlimited overtime. I instruct Grace as I accelerate down the street. I do not just want him arrested. I want his entire fraudulent empire burned to ashes. I want him sitting in a federal penitentiary for the next 15 years, and I want him to know exactly who put him there. The glass doors of my firm slide open, revealing a sprawling expanse of monitors, glowing data streams, and the low, intense hum of my team already executing the mobilization order. Grace meets me at the reception desk with a steaming cup of black coffee and a tablet loaded with our initial findings. We secured the preliminary bank records from the shell companies registered to your social security number, Grace says, walking briskly beside me as we head toward the main conference room. Kendrick routed the funds through 3 different domestic banks before bouncing them to offshore cryptocurrency exchanges. It is a classic layering technique designed to obfuscate the origin of the money. I push open the heavy doors of the war room. My top forensic analysts are already stationed at the central table, their eyes locked on the massive digital displays covering the walls. I do not bother taking off my coat. I walk straight to the head of the table and place my hands flat against the polished wood. Show me the money trail, I command. I want to see exactly how he built this illusion. Liam, my senior data analyst, brings up a complex web of financial transactions on the main screen. The center of the web is Kendrick's primary limited liability company, the one he fraudulently registered using my stolen identity. Branching out from that central node are dozens of secondary accounts, crypto wallets, and wire transfer logs. He is not a cryptocurrency genius, Liam states, tapping a laser pointer against a cluster of incoming wire transfers. He is running a textbook Ponzi scheme. There are absolutely no legitimate investments happening here. Zero capital is being allocated to actual digital assets or real estate development. I stare at the flowing data, my analytical mind instantly decoding the financial carnage. A Ponzi scheme relies entirely on a constant influx of new money. The fraudster uses the capital from new investors to pay fabricated returns to the earlier investors, creating a powerful, intoxicating illusion of massive profitability. The rest of the money goes straight into the fraudster's pocket to fund a lavish lifestyle. Pull up his expense ledgers, I say, my voice echoing in the quiet room. Show me what he bought with the stolen funds. The screen shifts. A list of exorbitant, sickening expenses scrolls past my eyes. $200,000 diverted to a luxury car dealership for the down payments on those leased vehicles he parades around in. $50,000 routed to a high-end jeweler for the flashy gold chains he wears to project success. And the most damning piece of evidence, a monthly wire transfer of $15,000 paying the mortgage on the $2 million suburban mansion he and Ashley are currently occupying. He is bleeding his investors dry to play rich. I observe, feeling a cold, righteous anger settling deep in my chest. He needed my pristine credit score to secure the initial commercial loans. He needed my financial stability to create the foundational shell company that made him look like a legitimate enterprise. Once he had the fake company established under my name, he used it to lure in his victims. Who is he targeting, I ask, leaning closer to the screen. Who are the investors pouring their money into this black hole? Grace types rapidly on her tablet, cross-referencing the incoming wire transfers with public demographic databases. The results populate on the secondary monitor, and the reality of Kendrick's crimes becomes infinitely darker. This is not just white-collar corporate fraud, Grace says, her voice dropping into a register of profound disgust. He is not targeting venture capitalists or hedge funds. Look at the origin accounts. I scan the list of names and bank routing numbers. My blood runs absolutely cold. The incoming transfers are not large corporate investments. They are a massive volume of smaller individual deposits ranging from $50,000 to $100,000. They are retirement accounts. I whisper the devastating truth, hitting me with full force. He is targeting pension funds and life savings. Liam nods grimly. He is specifically preying on elderly individuals and vulnerable members of his own community. We are seeing transfers from joint checking accounts belonging to people in their late 60s and 70s. These are teachers, nurses, and retired factory workers. He is attending local community seminars and church networking events, pitching them a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to secure generational wealth through his exclusive cryptocurrency real estate hybrid fund. He shows them the leased luxury cars, the fake designer suits, and the $2 million mansion. I continue piecing the predatory narrative together perfectly. He uses the visual props of extreme wealth to manipulate their trust. He tells them he has cracked the code to financial freedom. They see a confident, successful young man, and they hand over the money they spent their entire lives saving. He takes their retirement funds, deposits them into the shell companies registered under my name, and uses their life savings to pay the mortgage on the house, where my sister is currently decorating a nursery. The sheer, unadulterated evil of the operation is staggering. My parents, Brenda and Thomas, actually look at this man and see a brilliant provider. They see a visionary. They have absolutely no idea that his entire existence is built on the financial ruins of senior citizens. Or maybe they do. The thought strikes me with sudden, horrifying clarity. Pull up the domestic wire transfers again. I order, my eyes narrowing at a specific cluster of data points on the screen. Filter the incoming deposits from the last 48 hours. Search for any transactions originating from accounts registered to Thomas or Brenda. Grace's fingers fly across the keyboard. The system filters through thousands of data lines, isolating the specific parameters I requested. A single massive transaction appears on the main display. The room goes completely silent. Even Liam and Grace, who investigate corporate embezzlement every single day, stare at the screen in absolute shock. I do not blink. I do not gasp. I simply stare at the exact moment my parents signed away their entire lives. The digital ledger does not lie. It is right there in black and white, a monument to their unparalleled greed and their blind, pathetic worship of the golden child. Kendrick did not just steal my identity. He did not just defraud dozens of elderly strangers. He found a way to financially gut the very people who enabled him. The dominoes are falling faster than I anticipated, and the next revelation is going to shatter my family's illusion of superiority into a million unrecoverable pieces. Print every single page of these investor logs, I command, turning away from the screen and walking toward the door. Categorize the victims. Highlight the exact flow of the stolen retirement funds. I am taking the first batch of this evidence directly to Detective Reynolds. We are going to freeze every remaining asset Kendrick has access to before another innocent person loses their life savings. I push through the glass doors, the encrypted drive burning a hole in my pocket. Kendrick wanted to play games with federal law. Now he gets to experience the full, devastating power of a forensic audit. I stand absolutely still, the glow of the monitors casting long shadows across the war room. The massive transaction pulsing in red on the main display demands my complete attention. I do not blink. I do not let the shock compromise my analytical focus. Liam, isolate that specific data cluster. I command, my voice cutting through the steady hum of the servers. I need the exact origin of those funds. Trace the routing numbers back to the primary financial institutions. My lead analyst works with blinding speed. The data on the screen fractures, expanding into a detailed chronological timeline. The sum transferred is staggering, $850,000. But it is not a single clean transfer from a standard savings account. It is a rapid, frantic bleeding of multiple highly sensitive financial assets. They leveraged the house, I say aloud, the hollow reality of the statement hanging in the air. Grace leans closer to her monitor, her eyes widening as she confirms my deduction. You are right, Kelsey. They did not just take out a standard loan, they executed a maximum capacity home equity line of credit. They drained every single cent of equity out of that suburban fortress your mother worships. But that only accounts for $300,000. Where did the rest come from? Look at the secondary routing numbers, Liam interjects, highlighting a series of rapid-fire wire transfers that occurred over a 72-hour period last week. These originate from institutional investment firms. I step closer to the digital display, my eyes tracking the alphanumeric codes. I recognize the institutional signatures immediately. They are Tier 1 retirement management funds. They liquidated their retirement portfolios. I state, feeling a strange, freezing sensation wash over my entire body. My father's 401k, my mother's primary IRA account. They did not just withdraw a portion, they executed a total catastrophic liquidation. Grace pulls up the penalty logs. They bypassed the standard withdrawal procedures. She explains, her tone laced with professional disbelief. They willingly absorbed the massive early withdrawal penalties and the severe tax liabilities just to get the cash liquid immediately. They essentially set a third of their life savings on fire just to get the rest of the money into Kendrick's hands as fast as humanly possible. Why would they do this? Liam asks, genuinely baffled by the sheer financial suicide displayed on the screen. Conservative image-obsessed suburbanites do not just detonate 40 years of financial security on a whim. Because Kendrick sold them a delusion. I reply, my mind piecing the psychological puzzle together flawlessly. My parents are arrogant, and they are overwhelmingly greedy. They genuinely believe they are smarter than the general public. Kendrick knew exactly how to play them. He knew exactly which buttons to push to bypass their basic common sense. Find the pitch. Find the communication logs between Kendrick and Thomas from the days leading up to this liquidation. Grace runs a targeted search through the decrypted email servers we seized from Kendrick's fraudulent corporate accounts. Within seconds, she isolates a PDF attachment sent directly to my father's personal email address. Put it on the main screen, I order. The document materializes, and it is a masterpiece of predatory manipulation. It is a highly stylized, utterly fraudulent investment contract. It features fake corporate seals, meaningless financial jargon, and charts projecting exponential growth. But the most glaring, ridiculous element is the primary guarantee printed boldly on the first page. A guaranteed 30% annual return on investment paid out in monthly dividends, I read aloud, shaking my head at the absolute absurdity of the promise. Anyone with a rudimentary understanding of economics would laugh this document out of the room. A guaranteed 30% return does not exist in any legitimate financial market. It is the ultimate bait for greedy, status-obsessed people who want to feel like they are part of an exclusive, untouchable elite class. Kendrick stroked my father's ego. I continue tracing the signature line where Thomas proudly signed his name. He probably called him an angel investor. He probably told my parents that they were getting in on the ground floor of a revolutionary digital asset empire. He made them feel superior, and they happily handed him the keys to their entire existence. Where did the money actually go? I ask, shifting my focus back to the transaction ledgers. Did he at least attempt to park it in a volatile crypto wallet? Liam traces the destination routing numbers. The map that appears on the screen is devastating. The $850,000 hit the shell company registered under my stolen identity. Then it instantly splintered. $200,000 was immediately wired to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Liam reports cross-referencing the receiving accounts. It looks like he used it to pacify a group of early investors who were threatening legal action. He used your parents' retirement money to silence the people who realized they were being scammed. The classic Ponzi survival tactic: rob Peter to pay Paul. And the rest I press. Grace pulls up the domestic vendor logs. Another $50,000 went directly to a luxury event planning agency based here in Chicago. I close my eyes for a fraction of a second. The sickening reality of that specific expense hits me squarely in the chest. Ashley is throwing a massive over-the-top gender reveal party next weekend. She has been bragging about it on social media for weeks. My parents literally funded their own financial execution so my sister could have a viral moment on the internet. I state, my voice dropping into a razor-sharp register. What about the remaining $600,000? Liam sighs, pointing to a final definitive outgoing wire transfer. It was converted into a highly untraceable digital currency and transferred to a decentralized exchange wallet that has already been flagged and frozen by international regulatory authorities due to suspicious activity. The funds are locked in a digital vault that Kendrick can no longer access. The money is gone, Kelsey. Evaporated into the digital ether. I stand in the center of the war room, surrounded by my brilliant team and the undeniable digital proof of my family's total annihilation. I should feel pity. These are the people who raised me. They are currently sitting in that pristine kitchen sipping espresso, believing they are financial geniuses about to double their net worth. They believe Kendrick's is their golden ticket to the absolute highest tier of wealth. They have no idea they are completely, irrecoverably destitute. If they miss 2 mortgage payments, the bank will foreclose on the house. They have no safety net, no savings, no retirement funds. They are practically homeless. I remember my father standing over me just hours ago, arrogantly offering to let me live in his basement when my life supposedly fell apart. The irony is so thick, it is almost tangible. They offered me the basement of a house they no longer truly own. I feel absolutely nothing but cold clinical validation. They stole my identity. They handed my social security number to a criminal because they thought my life had zero value. They told me to confess to federal crimes and go to prison, all while they were secretly dumping their entire life savings into a scam because they were blinded by their own greed and their pathetic, unwavering worship of the golden child. Print every single page of this, I instruct Liam, my tone, leaving absolutely no room for hesitation. Print the home equity loan documents with their signatures. Print the retirement liquidation confirmations showing the massive penalties they willingly paid. Print the fake 30% return contract. I want it all bound in a single undeniable dossier. I am not going to call them and warn them. I am not going to soften the blow. They wanted to play a high-stakes game of financial manipulation, and they selected me as their designated loser. Now they get to experience the exact, unmitigated devastation they planned for me. I walk over to the printer and collect the thick stack of warm documents. This is not just evidence for the federal investigators. This is the ultimate weapon I will use to obliterate their delusion. They wanted to build a legacy on my ruined reputation. Instead, I am going to hand them the receipt for their own destruction. I am standing at the central printer in the war room, collecting the physical evidence of my parents' absolute financial suicide when Grace walks back through the glass doors. Her tablet is tightly gripped in her hands, and her usually stoic professional expression has been replaced by a look of profound disgust. "You need to see this right now," Grace says, her voice tight with tension. She walks straight up to the main conference table and mirrors her tablet display directly onto the massive digital screen on the wall. "They are not just playing the victim privately anymore," Liam adds, stepping away from his workstation to look at the screen. "They have decided to take their delusions public. They are weaponizing social media." I cross my arms over my chest and stare at the massive display. The screen shows a live video broadcasting on both Facebook and Instagram. The account belongs to my younger sister, Ashley. The setup of the video is a masterclass in narcissistic predatory manipulation. Ashley is sitting in the nursery of the $2 million mansion she bought with my stolen identity. The lighting is intentionally soft and warm, casting a gentle glow over the expensive crib and the plush rocking chair behind her. She is wearing a simple, oversized maternity sweater, her hands resting protectively over her pregnant belly. Her makeup is deliberately smudged under her eyes, giving her the appearance of a terrified, exhausted mother who has spent hours crying. Kendrick is sitting slightly behind her, his head bowed, playing the role of the unjustly persecuted husband. He has taken off his flashy gold chains and his expensive watches. He is wearing a plain gray sweatshirt, looking remarkably humble and defeated. I press my lips together as Ashley begins to speak. Her voice trembles perfectly. It is a highly rehearsed, Oscar-worthy performance designed to manipulate the emotions of every single person watching. "I never thought I would have to make a video like this." Ashley cries directly into the camera, wiping a fake tear from her cheek. "I never thought my own flesh and blood could be so deeply evil. But my family is under attack, and I need to tell the truth before my sister destroys our lives completely." She pauses, taking a shaky breath, pressing her hand against her chest as if she is struggling to find the strength to continue. "As many of you know, my older sister Kelsey has always struggled with severe mental health issues. Ashley lies effortlessly to her thousands of followers. She has always been incredibly jealous of me. She is 34 years old, completely alone and tragically unable to build a family of her own. We have always tried to love her. We have always tried to support her through her psychological breakdowns. My husband Kendrick is a hardworking, brilliant entrepreneur. He felt sorry for Kelsey. He generously allowed her to put her name on some of his corporate real estate filings, just so she could feel like she was a part of something successful. He just wanted to help her build her confidence." I let out a harsh, sharp laugh. The sheer audacity of her narrative is breathtaking. She is not just denying the felony identity theft, she is entirely flipping the script. She is painting the victim as the abuser, using modern buzzwords about mental health to instantly discredit my sanity in the public eye. "But yesterday, everything went horribly wrong." Ashley continues, her voice breaking into loud theatrical sobs. "There was a minor clerical error at one of the banks regarding the corporate filings. Instead of letting Kendrick call the bank to fix the paperwork, Kelsey had a complete psychotic break. She called the federal authorities and fabricated a massive, insane lie. She told them Kendrick stole her identity. She told them he is running a scam. She actually sent the police to our home this morning. They raided our house, terrified my unborn baby, and treated my innocent husband like a criminal." Kendrick reaches out and places a comforting hand on Ashley's shoulder, looking up at the camera with an expression of profound, manufactured sorrow. "She is trying to send an innocent black man to federal prison over a banking glitch," Ashley wails brilliantly, weaponizing social dynamics to maximize the outrage of her audience. "She knows exactly what the justice system does to men who look like my husband. She is using the police to harass us because she is a bitter, barren woman who cannot stand the fact that I am happily married and pregnant. She is literally trying to steal the house right out from under my baby. We are terrified of what her sick, twisted mind will do next." The video ends with a plea for prayers and support, followed by a direct link to a GoFundMe campaign titled Kendrick Legal Defense and Baby Protection Fund. I stand perfectly still, letting the absolute silence of my corporate war room wash over me. Grace and Liam are watching me intently, waiting for the inevitable emotional explosion. They expect me to scream. They expect me to grab my phone and furiously type out a defense to clear my name. They expect me to break down under the weight of this catastrophic public humiliation. I do not feel humiliated. I feel the distinct icy thrill of a predator watching its prey willingly step into a steel trap. Scroll down, I instruct Grace, my voice completely devoid of panic. Show me the comment section. Grace taps her tablet and the comments begin populating on the main screen. It is an absolute, unmitigated bloodbath. The video has already gone viral within our extended family and our local suburban community. The comment section is a torrential flood of hatred, vitriol, and blind raging support for my sister. My Aunt Linda is one of the top comments. "We are praying for you and Kendrick without ceasing," she writes. "Kelsey has always been a deeply disturbed, jealous individual. Your parents have suffered for years trying to manage her toxic behavior. Stay strong, sweetie. God will protect your beautiful family from her wickedness." My cousin Megan chimes in right below her. "This is absolutely psychotic behavior," Megan comments, adding several angry emojis. "Who calls the feds on their own pregnant sister over a paperwork error? Kelsey belongs in a locked psychiatric ward. Do not let that monster anywhere near your children." I watch as dozens of family friends, former high school classmates, and complete strangers pile onto the digital pyre. They are calling me a sociopath. They are calling me a racist. They are demanding that the authorities arrest me for filing a false police report. The GoFundMe counter at the bottom of the screen is ticking upward in real time as gullible, well-meaning people hand their money directly to a man who is currently under federal investigation for a multi-million-dollar Ponzi scheme. And then the final nail is driven into the coffin. My mother Brenda shares the video directly to her own highly trafficked Facebook page. She adds a lengthy, melodramatic caption designed specifically for her wealthy country club friends. It breaks a mother's heart to admit that she has failed Brenda, types her digital words dripping with toxic performative grief. "We have tried everything humanly possible to get Kelsey the psychiatric help she so desperately needs. We have given her nothing but unconditional love, and in return, she has tried to destroy her sister out of pure, unadulterated malice. Thomas and I are officially cutting all ties with our eldest daughter to protect our grandchildren. We ask for privacy as our family navigates this devastating betrayal." My father Thomas immediately comments on his wife's post. "Tough love is the hardest kind of love to give," he writes boldly. "But we must protect the real family. Kendrick is a good man, and we will fight this malicious slander with everything we have." I let out a slow, deliberate breath. I do not cry. I do not feel a single ounce of sadness. The emotional manipulation they used to terrorize me during my childhood has completely lost its power. I am looking at a screen full of people who are eagerly volunteering to board a sinking ship. "Do you want me to contact our public relations firm?" Grace asks, her fingers hovering over her keyboard, ready to launch a massive counteroffensive to protect my corporate reputation. "We can issue a cease and desist immediately. We can release a statement confirming your status as the CEO of this agency and publicly deny the allegations of mental instability." "No," I say, a sharp, dangerous smile curving my lips. "Absolutely not. Never interrupt your enemy when they are in the process of destroying themselves." I walk closer to the screen, analyzing the specific phrasing my mother and sister used in their posts. "Archive every single post," I order, my voice ringing with absolute clinical authority. "Capture the exact timestamps. Download the original unedited video files. Take high-resolution screenshots of every single comment, especially the ones from my extended family and my parents. I want every single threat, every single lie, and every single donation to that fraudulent GoFundMe campaign documented and securely stored on our servers." Liam begins executing the digital preservation protocols immediately. "What is the legal play here, Kelsey?" he asks, his eyes reflecting the blue light of his monitors. "This is not just social media drama. I explained, pacing slowly in front of the screens. This is a massive, highly public escalation of their criminal enterprise. Ashley just went on the internet and publicly claimed that she and Kendrick are the rightful legal occupants of a property that was purchased using a stolen identity. She just publicly admitted to having financial ties to the shell companies we flagged. And worst of all, she just launched a GoFundMe campaign based entirely on a fabricated narrative, which constitutes an entirely new count of federal wire fraud. I turned to face my team, the adrenaline of the hunt surging through my veins. By posting this video, Ashley just legally implicated herself as a willing co-conspirator in Kendrick's operation. I continue pointing at her tear-stained face on the paused video feed. She is not a clueless wife anymore. She is an active participant soliciting fraudulent donations across state lines using telecommunications infrastructure. She just handed the federal prosecutors the exact evidence they need to indict her right alongside her husband. And as for my parents, I add feeling a deep, satisfying sense of closure regarding Thomas and Brenda. They are actively engaging in witness intimidation. They are attempting to publicly discredit the primary witness in a federal investigation. They are committing slander, libel, and defamation of character. They are doing everything in their power to obstruct justice because they are absolutely terrified of losing the massive investment they dumped into Kendrick's fake empire. My personal cell phone begins to vibrate relentlessly in my pocket. The screen lights up with dozens of hateful text messages from cousins I have not spoken to in years. The death threats from strangers who believe Ashley's viral performance are already flooding my inbox. I pull the phone out, switch it to silent mode, and toss it casually onto the conference table. Let them talk, I say, turning back to the financial data rolling across the secondary monitors. Let them paint me as the villain. Let them rally the entire family against me. I want them to feel completely safe. I want them to feel like they have won the public opinion war. Because the higher they climb on their pedestal of lies, the more devastating it will be when the federal government kicks the foundation out from under them. I pick up the printed dossier containing the undeniable proof of my parents' total financial ruin. I look at the forged mortgage documents that belong to Kendrick. Compile the social media archives into a secondary file. I instruct Grace my tone, signaling that the planning phase is officially over. Attach it to the financial audits. I am taking this entire package down to Detective Reynolds right now. Ashley wanted a spectacular, dramatic audience. We are going to make sure her next performance takes place in a federal courtroom. The fallout from Ashley's viral video rages relentlessly for exactly 3 days. My corporate phone lines are flooded with voicemails from outraged suburbanites, distant relatives, and gullible strangers who have eagerly swallowed my sister's fabricated victim narrative. Grace intercepts every single call with a masterclass in professional apathy, logging the harassment while maintaining our strict firm-wide blackout on public statements. I am sitting at my desk finalizing the bound dossier of Kendrick's fraudulent offshore routing numbers when the heavy oak door of my office swings open. Grace walks in carrying a polished silver tray. Resting in the center is a massive, incredibly thick envelope made of premium cream cardstock. It is sealed with a custom-pressed burgundy wax stamp. The sheer ridiculous expense of the stationery is immediately obvious. Grace sets the tray on my desk, her expression a mixture of profound disbelief and absolute disgust. "A private courier just dropped this off at the reception desk," Grace states, crossing her arms over her chest. "It was marked for your immediate and personal attention. I assume they used the absolute last drops of your parents' liquidated retirement money to pay for the expedited delivery." I pick up a silver letter opener and slice cleanly through the wax seal. I slide the heavy cardstock out of the envelope. It is an invitation. The lettering is stamped in shimmering gold foil, adorned with intricate, nauseatingly elegant floral borders. It is a formal announcement for Ashley and Kendrick's baby number 2 gender reveal party. I stare at the lavish card, completely mesmerized by the sheer, unadulterated delusion it represents. Kendrick is currently out on a massive federal bail bond, a bond likely secured by completely draining whatever microscopic fraction of cash my father Thomas had left hidden in a secondary checking account. Yet instead of laying low, instead of securing a criminal defense attorney, or preparing for a devastating federal indictment, they are throwing a party. And not just any party. I read the location printed boldly at the bottom of the card. They are hosting a massive, fully catered high society gathering at the exact $2 million suburban mansion that Kendrick purchased using my stolen social security number. They are inviting the entire extended family and their wealthy country club friends directly to an active crime scene. But the invitation itself is not the true payload. As I flip the heavy cardstock over, a smaller folded piece of personal stationery flutters onto my desk. I recognize the sharp, aggressive, cursive handwriting instantly. It is from my mother, Brenda. I unfold the paper, leaning back in my leather executive chair to read the ultimatum she has so foolishly committed to writing. Kelsey. The note begins entirely abandoning any pretense of maternal affection. The entire family has seen exactly what kind of monster you truly are. Your pathetic, jealous attempt to frame Kendrick and ruin your sister's beautiful life has failed completely. We have consulted with the best attorneys in Chicago, and they assure us that your little clerical stunt with the police will be dismissed by the end of the week. But I am willing to offer you one final, incredibly generous chance to save yourself from absolute ruin. I let out a dry, sharp laugh, my eyes scanning the next paragraph. The delusion is so thick it is almost suffocating. My mother genuinely believes a federal wire fraud investigation is a minor misunderstanding she can simply bully away. You are commanded to attend the gender reveal party this Saturday. Brenda's handwriting continues, pressing so hard into the paper that the dark blue ink bleeds through the back. You will stand in front of our entire family, all of our friends and our community, and you will publicly apologize to Ashley and Kendrick for your psychotic behavior. Furthermore, I have had our lawyers draft a quitclaim deed. You will sign the property transfer documents in front of a notary at the party, legally surrendering any and all claims to the house. You will transfer the title directly into a limited liability company that your father and I control. Then comes the threat. The exact extortionate leverage she thinks she holds over me. If you fail to appear, or if you refuse to sign the transfer papers, I will personally make sure you lose everything Brenda threatens in jagged ink. I will go to every major news outlet in the city. I will publicly testify that you are criminally insane and a danger to society. I will file a massive civil lawsuit against your accounting firm for defamation, harassment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. I will drag your corporate reputation through the mud until every single one of your wealthy clients fires you. You have 48 hours to RSVP. Choose wisely, because I will absolutely destroy your career in open court if you defy me. I set the handwritten note down on my desk next to the massive, undeniable pile of federal evidence proving Kendrick's multi-million-dollar Ponzi scheme. I look at the physical threat of extortion my mother just documented, signed, and delivered to my corporate headquarters via private courier. She thinks she has checkmated me. She genuinely believes that the threat of public embarrassment and a frivolous civil lawsuit will terrify me into signing away a $2 million asset and confessing to her fabricated narrative. She thinks I am still the terrified, compliant scapegoat she conditioned me to be throughout my entire childhood. She does not realize that she just handed a forensic accountant a written, signed confession of attempted extortion. She does not realize that trying to force a victim of identity theft to sign a quitclaim deed under the threat of reputational destruction is a severe standalone felony. She has effectively handed me the exact weapon I need to legally annihilate her. Grace watches me from across the desk, her eyes tracking the sharp, predatory smile slowly spreading across my face. "What does it say?" she asks, her voice tight with anticipation. "It is an invitation to a slaughter," I reply, picking up the gold-embossed card and tossing it back onto the silver tray. My mother wants me to attend a massive catered party at the stolen mansion this Saturday. She wants me to publicly apologize to the con artist who stole my identity, and she is threatening to sue my firm into oblivion if I do not sign the house over to her personal control. Grace lets out a breath of pure disbelief. They are having a party. Kendrick is the target of an active FBI wire fraud investigation, and they are buying balloons and catering. Arrogance is a terminal disease, Grace, I state, standing up from my desk and smoothing the front of my tailored blazer. They think they can bully their way out of a federal indictment. They think this is just family drama that can be solved by screaming the loudest and throwing the biggest tantrum. I pick up my cell phone and dial the direct extension for Detective Reynolds at the Financial Crimes Division. It is time to coordinate the final strike. What are you going to do? Grace asks, her eyes wide as she watches me pull my coat from the rack. I am going to RSVP. Yes, I reply, the dial tone ringing in my ear. I am going to put on my absolute best dress. I am going to walk into that stolen mansion, and I am going to give my mother and my sister the exact unforgettable public spectacle they so desperately crave. The heavily fortified glass doors of the Chicago Federal Building slide open, sealing the biting wind outside. I walk through the metal detectors with absolute purpose, carrying a thick, locked titanium briefcase. Detective Reynolds is waiting for me past the security checkpoint. He does not look like a local cop handling a minor suburban dispute anymore. He is flanked by a tall, sharply dressed man wearing a severe expression and a badge clipped to his belt. Kelsey, Detective Reynolds says, offering a tight professional nod. I want to introduce you to Special Agent Harrison with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. After reviewing the initial data you provided yesterday, the Bureau has officially assumed jurisdiction over Kendrick's operations. Wire fraud across state lines combined with a multi-million-dollar cryptocurrency Ponzi scheme elevates this to a federal level. Special Agent Harrison extends his hand. We have been tracking decentralized crypto scams targeting elderly populations for months. He states, his grip firm and strictly business. Your preliminary audit was incredibly thorough, but Reynolds mentioned you have new developments. He tells me your targets are actually escalating their behavior. I do not smile. I gesture toward the secured elevators. We need a conference room, Agent Harrison. What I'm about to show you upgrades this from a standard financial crimes investigation to active witness intimidation, extortion, and an ongoing conspiracy to commit fraud. Minutes later, we are sealed inside a soundproof federal briefing room. The walls are lined with blank whiteboards and secure monitors. I place my titanium briefcase on the center of the metal table dial in the combination and pop the latches. I pull out the pristine gold-embossed invitation to Ashley and Kendrick's gender reveal party. I set it down directly in front of Agent Harrison. Next to it, I place the heavy cardstock containing the handwritten extortion letter from my mother, Brenda. Finally, I withdraw a massive 500-page bound dossier containing every single decrypted transaction, offshore wire transfer, and forged signature log my firm compiled over the last 48 hours. Read the handwritten note first, I instruct, taking a seat across from the two federal investigators. It was delivered to my corporate headquarters by private courier 2 hours ago. My mother is officially demanding that I attend a lavish party this Saturday at the exact $2 million mansion Kendrick purchased using my stolen Social Security number. Agent Harrison picks up the letter. His professional stoic expression slowly cracks as he reads Brenda's unhinged threats. He reads the part where she demands I sign a quitclaim deed to surrender the property into a limited liability company she and my father control. He reads the explicit threat to destroy my corporate reputation, file frivolous civil lawsuits, and publicly brand me as criminally insane if I refuse to comply. This is textbook extortion, Harrison says, dropping the letter onto the table with a look of profound disbelief. She has documented her intent to blackmail a federal witness. She is attempting to coerce the transfer of a highly leveraged fraudulent asset across state lines. Your mother just handed us a signed confession to a felony. She genuinely believes she holds the power here, I explain, tapping my index finger against the thick financial dossier. My family operates under a severe shared delusion. They bailed Kendrick out of his initial holding cell, and they have convinced themselves that the raid on the house was just a minor clerical error that their expensive lawyers will make disappear by next week. They do not understand federal law. They only understand social status and brute force manipulation. I slide the financial dossier toward Detective Reynolds. That is the complete forensic audit of Kendrick's entire fake empire, I state, walking them through the nightmare I uncovered. I mapped out the entire Ponzi structure. He stole millions from the retirement accounts of elderly individuals. But the most crucial data point is on page 42. My parents, Thomas and Brenda, fully liquidated their own retirement funds and took out a maximum home equity line of credit to pump $850,000 directly into Kendrick's offshore wallets. They are completely irrecoverably bankrupt. They are trying to force me to sign over the stolen mansion because they think it is their only remaining financial lifeboat. Reynolds shakes his head, flipping through the meticulously highlighted bank records. They funded the very criminal who stole your identity, and now they are trying to blackmail you to cover their own catastrophic losses. The sheer arrogance is staggering. Arrogance is their primary weakness, I reply, leaning forward and resting my arms on the table. And that is exactly how we are going to catch all of them in one clean, undeniable sweep. I am going to RSVP yes to that party. I am going to walk into that stolen mansion on Saturday afternoon. Agent Harrison raises an eyebrow, instantly recognizing the tactical opportunity. You want to execute a coordinated sting operation during the event. I want to drop a bomb on their entire fabricated reality. I correct him, my voice completely devoid of hesitation. They invited their wealthy country club friends, their neighbors, and our entire extended family to this event. They want to use the crowd to pressure me into signing those property transfer documents. They want a public apology to feed their narcissistic victim complex. I'm going to give them exactly what they asked for, but on my terms. I lay out the blueprint of my plan. I explain the layout of the mansion, a house I have never legally stepped foot in, but one I know intimately from pulling the architectural blueprints during the audit. I tell them about the massive media system Kendrick had installed in the main living room, a system Ashley plans to use to broadcast her overly produced gender reveal video to all her guests. I am bringing a customized encrypted USB drive to that party, I tell the federal agents. When my mother tries to force me to sign that quitclaim deed in front of the crowd, I am not going to argue with her. I am going to plug my drive directly into their projection system. Instead of a video showing pink or blue confetti, I am going to broadcast Kendrick's offshore bankruptcy filings, the fraud schematics, and the exact documents proving my parents just incinerated their entire life savings. Detective Reynolds lets out a low whistle, clearly impressed by the sheer, devastating precision of the counterattack. You want to strip away their social armor right before we breach the doors. Exactly. I confirm, locking eyes with Agent Harrison. My family cares more about their public image than they care about oxygen. If you arrest Kendrick quietly in the middle of the night, my sister and my mother will spend the rest of their lives playing the tragic victims. They will spin a narrative that I am a jealous monster who framed an innocent, brilliant black entrepreneur. I refuse to give them that loophole. The truth needs to be exposed in front of the exact audience they were trying to impress. Agent Harrison taps his pen against the metal table, his mind calculating the logistics of a federal raid in a heavily populated residential area. We cannot risk the safety of the civilian guests, he states pragmatically. If Kendrick panics, the situation could escalate. He is a white-collar con artist, not a cartel boss, I counter smoothly. He is a coward who buys fake designer shoes to feel powerful. When I put his financial ruin on a 10-foot screen in front of his wealthy neighbors, he is not going to fight. He is going to completely break down. I slide a detailed map of the property across the table. You position your undercover tactical units at the perimeter before the guests arrive. You block the rear exits leading to the golf course. You place 2 plainclothes agents inside the catering staff. When I trigger the projection system and confront them with the extortion letter that is your signal, you breach the front doors, you execute the federal arrest warrants, and you take Kendrick down in front of everyone. Harrison studies the map, tracing the entry points with his pen. He looks at Reynolds, who gives a firm affirmative nod. We have the evidence for a multi-count federal indictment, Harrison finally says, looking back at me with a sharp professional respect. Wire fraud, identity theft, and now extortion. We will have the strike team in position by noon on Saturday. We move on your signal, Kelsey. I stand up, snapping my titanium briefcase shut. The trap is officially set. I walk out of the federal building with the cold wind hitting my face, feeling an absolute terrifying clarity. My family wanted a spectacular, unforgettable show. They are about to get the performance of a lifetime. The address matches the fraudulent mortgage documents perfectly. A sprawling modern estate nestled behind wrought iron gates in one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in the state. I hand my car keys to a hired valet, my eyes carefully scanning the perimeter of the manicured lawn. I spot a plain white catering van parked near the service entrance and a heavily tinted SUV idling down the street. Special Agent Harrison and his undercover tactical team are already in position, waiting silently for my signal. I smooth the fabric of my tailored emerald green blazer, adjust my posture to project absolute authority, and walk up the grand stone steps. I push open the massive double mahogany doors and step into a scene of absolute unadulterated financial delusion. The grand foyer is decorated with thousands of cascading pink and blue silk flowers. A classical string quartet plays in the corner, completely drowned out by the arrogant, booming laughter of my family and their guests. Waiters in crisp white uniforms circulate with silver trays of imported champagne and artisan hors d'oeuvres. This single afternoon is likely costing them $50,000, and every single cent of it is derived from the stolen life savings of elderly victims. The moment my heels click against the imported Italian marble floor, the atmosphere in the room visibly shifts. Conversations halt abruptly. Heads turn. The whispers begin instantly rippling through the massive crowd of extended family members, wealthy neighbors, and my parents' prestigious country club friends. I see my Aunt Linda leaning in to whisper behind her hand to a woman wearing far too much diamond jewelry. They look at me with a mixture of morbid curiosity and profound disgust, completely poisoned by the viral victim video my sister posted days ago. I do not lower my gaze. I maintain absolute, unwavering eye contact with anyone who dares to stare, holding my custom encrypted USB drive tightly in my pocket. At the center of the sprawling living room, positioned strategically in front of a massive ceiling-high projection screen, stands the golden couple. Kendrick is wearing a pristine, custom-tailored white tuxedo that he absolutely purchased using stolen funds. He has one arm wrapped securely around Ashley, who is wearing a flowing, heavily sequined maternity gown. She is holding court, accepting lavishly wrapped gifts and soaking in the adulation of her captive audience. Kendrick is loudly holding forth to a group of older, wealthy men, gesturing expansively with a fresh glass of premium champagne. I am telling you, the digital asset market is all about aggressive positioning. Kendrick brags, his voice carrying clearly over the classical music. You have to ignore the federal regulatory noise. The real generational wealth is built by those who are bold enough to bypass traditional banking structures. My portfolio has tripled this quarter alone because I know how to spot the inefficiencies in the market. It takes every ounce of my professional restraint not to burst out laughing. He is standing in a house he does not own, sipping champagne bought with stolen pension funds while federal agents disguised as caterers serve him bacon-wrapped scallops. A few feet away, my father Thomas is doing exactly what he has done his entire life. He is desperately leveraging someone else's perceived success to boost his own fragile ego. He is aggressively cornering a group of his wealthy golf buddies, clapping one of them firmly on the back. My son-in-law has a brilliant financial mind. Thomas boasts proudly, puffing out his chest so his expensive suit jacket stretches tight. Kendrick completely disrupted the real estate market. He is a multi-millionaire before his 33rd birthday. I actually just liquidated some of my stagnant traditional retirement portfolios to let him manage the capital. The returns he is guaranteeing me are absolutely staggering. You guys should really consider getting in on the ground floor. I stare at my father, genuinely amazed by the depth of his ignorance. He is bragging to his friends about handing his entire life savings over to a con artist. He is literally boasting about his own catastrophic financial ruin to men who will be reading about his total bankruptcy in the federal indictments by tomorrow morning. Then a sharp manicured hand clamps down on my wrist like a steel vise. I turn to see my mother Brenda. Her face is arranged into a mask of fake, sorrowful maternal concern for the benefit of the watching crowd, but her eyes are completely dead and filled with toxic venom. She is holding a thick manila folder in her free hand. "You actually showed up," Brenda hisses under her breath, her grip tightening painfully on my arm. "I knew you would not dare test me. You finally realize that you cannot win against this family." I do not pull my arm away. I simply look down at her hand, then back up to her face. "I am here to settle the accounts, Mom. Exactly as requested." Brenda smiles, a cruel, triumphant expression spreading across her face. "Good. Because it is time for you to face the consequences of your pathetic jealousy." Without warning, she yanks my arm, dragging me forcibly toward the center of the massive living room. The crowd parts for us like the Red Sea. The string quartet abruptly stops playing. The room plunges into a heavy, expectant silence. Every single guest turns their attention to the center of the room, where Ashley and Kendrick are standing beneath the enormous projection screen. Everyone. Brenda projects her voice loud and artificially sweet, commanding the attention of the entire room. "Could I have your attention, please?" The whispers die down completely. Brenda steps forward, positioning me directly in front of the crowd, isolating me like a criminal on a public stage. "As you all know, our family has been going through a devastating trial this week," Brenda announces, placing a theatrical hand over her heart. "My eldest daughter, Kelsey, has been struggling with severe, deeply concerning mental health issues. She allowed her jealousy over her sister's beautiful marriage and growing family to consume her. She fabricated horrible, malicious lies to the authorities to try and destroy the incredible life Kendrick has built for my daughter." Ashley lets out a perfectly timed, dramatic sob, burying her face against Kendrick's white tuxedo jacket. Kendrick looks at me with an expression of pure, arrogant victory, genuinely believing he has won the war. But today is a day of healing. Brenda continues, her voice ringing with self-righteous authority. "Kelsey has come here today to make things right. She is going to publicly apologize to the sister she tried to destroy. And she is going to sign these legal documents transferring the title of this property out of her name and into a secure family trust where her erratic behavior can never threaten my grandchildren again." Brenda thrusts the manila folder toward me, clicking a heavy gold pen open. But before I can take it, she leans in close, her breath hot against my ear. "Get on your knees!" Brenda whispers, her voice a razor-sharp command meant only for me. "You are going to get on your knees right now in front of all these people, and you are going to beg your sister for forgiveness. If you do not kneel, I will execute every single threat I wrote in that letter. I will destroy your career. I will ruin your life. Get down." I look at the folder in her hand. I look at Ashley's smug, tear-stained face. I look at Kendrick, who is smiling like a king on a stolen throne. I reach into my tailored blazer and wrap my fingers tightly around the encrypted USB drive. I am not going to kneel. I am going to end them. I look at the gold pen in my mother's hand. I look at her desperate, furious eyes. I do not take the pen. I reach into my tailored emerald blazer pocket, my fingers closing securely around the cold metal of the encrypted flash drive. I am not going to kneel, I say, my voice projecting clearly across the dead silent room. And I am certainly not going to apologize for surviving a federal crime. Brenda recoils as if physically struck. A collective gasp ripples through the wealthy audience. Ashley's fake tears instantly stop, replaced by genuine, unmasked panic. I step around my mother, completely ignoring her frantic, whispered threats to ruin my career. I walk directly toward the elaborate audiovisual control station set up in the corner of the grand living room. The DJ, a young guy hired to play celebratory music for the gender reveal, stands up from his turntable looking highly confused. "Excuse me, miss, you cannot be back here," he stammers, holding his hands up defensively. I flash him a look of absolute terrifying corporate authority. "Step aside," I command. He immediately takes a step back, thoroughly intimidated by the sheer force of my presence. I slide my custom encrypted USB drive directly into the primary port of his broadcasting laptop. I quickly bypass his generic playlist software and mirror my drive directly to the massive ceiling high projection screen suspended above the grand fireplace. Kendrick notices what I am doing. His arrogant, triumphant smirk completely vanishes from his face. "Hey, what are you doing with that equipment?" he barks, his voice suddenly pitching higher in undisguised panic. "Turn that off right now. We are about to play the ultrasound video for the guests." I press enter. The enormous screen flickers, goes black for a fraction of a second, and then illuminates the entire room with glaring, undeniable truth. There is no ultrasound. There is no pink or blue confetti. Instead, a massive, highly detailed forensic accounting flowchart fills the screen. The header, written in bold, unmissable red letters, reads, "Kendrick Fraudulent Asset Mapping." The crowd falls into a stunned, breathless hush. I pick up the DJ microphone. The feedback whines sharply before my voice echoes through the cavernous living room. "Since my family wants to make this a highly public spectacle," I announce, staring directly into the sea of country club elites and extended relatives, "I figured we should review the actual numbers funding this luxurious party." I tap the presentation remote, zooming in on the center of the flowchart. This is the cryptocurrency empire my brother-in-law has been bragging about all afternoon. I state, my voice ringing with clinical, devastating precision. It is a textbook Ponzi scheme. Kendrick has zero legitimate investments. He stole my identity and my social security number to create a fraudulent corporate shell. He then used that fake company to steal millions of dollars from the retirement accounts of elderly individuals. Outraged gasps erupt from the audience. A few of Thomas's wealthy golf buddies, the exact men he was just aggressively pitching this scam to, physically step away from Kendrick as if he is contagious. Kendrick's face turns an ashen, sickly shade of gray. He opens his mouth to speak, but no words come out. He looks like a cornered, terrified animal realizing the trap has snapped shut. I click to the next slide. Massive, glaring court documents appear on the screen for everyone to read. These are his actual financial credentials. I continue mercilessly. Notice the multiple defaulted loans. Notice the staggering credit card debt. Kendrick does not own this $2 million mansion. He fraudulently mortgaged it using my pristine credit score, leaving me holding the bag while he plays billionaire. He is currently the target of an active investigation by the Federal Bureau of Investigation for wire fraud and felony identity theft. Ashley lets out a horrifying, genuine scream. "Turn it off!" she shrieks, lunging toward the stage, but the dense crowd is blocking her path entirely. Too mesmerized by the unfolding disaster to move out of her way. She grabs Kendrick's arm, shaking him frantically, demanding he do something, but Kendrick is paralyzed, his eyes darting toward the exits. But the most fascinating part of this financial tragedy, I say, my voice dropping to a dangerous, icy register, is who actually funded this magnificent gathering today. I click to the final, most devastating slide. High-resolution scans of banking documents fill the 10-foot screen. The signatures of Thomas and Brenda are magnified for every single guest to see clearly. Next to the bank records is a high-resolution scan of the handwritten extortion letter my mother sent me. My mother lets out a choked, suffocated noise. She covers her mouth with both hands, her eyes wide with absolute, unadulterated terror. My father looks like he has just been physically struck. He grips the edge of a catering table with white knuckles just to keep from collapsing onto the imported marble floor. "Take a close look at these transaction logs," I command the room, pointing at the glowing numbers. My parents, Thomas and Brenda, the people who just tried to extort me into signing away my property, are completely, irrecoverably bankrupt. They did not just fall for a con artist, they funded him. 3 days ago, they executed a maximum capacity home equity line of credit on their house. They willingly paid massive tax penalties to fully liquidate their entire retirement portfolios. They handed $850,000 directly to Kendrick, chasing a fabricated 30% return. The whispers in the room turn into a loud, frantic murmuring. The country club friends, the people whose approval my mother worshipped above her own children, stare at Brenda with expressions of pure pity and revulsion. Aunt Linda looks physically sick, covering her face in shame. My father's golf buddies are shaking their heads in profound disgust. Thomas and Brenda have not just been exposed as terrible parents, they have been exposed as absolute financial fools. Their carefully curated social status is currently burning to ashes on a 10-foot screen. I look directly at my mother, who is trembling violently, her perfect facade entirely shattered. You tried to blackmail me to save yourselves, I state, the microphone amplifying the cold truth of my words. You tried to force me to surrender a $2 million asset because you realized you handed your entire life savings to a criminal and you have absolutely nothing left. You are penniless, Mom. You are going to lose your house, your retirement, and your precious social standing. And you did it entirely to yourself. The silence that follows my declaration is absolute. I have stripped away every single layer of their deception in front of the exact audience they desperately wanted to impress. The trap has been sprung flawlessly. Kendrick takes a sudden frantic step backward, bumping into a waiter as he tries to sprint toward the rear exit. But he is already far too late. The murmurs in the room swell into a chaotic, deafening roar. Kendrick frantically pushes against the wall of guests, but the very people he spent the last 2 hours trying to impress are now actively blocking his path. A few of the older gentleman men, who likely handed him checks just days ago, grab him by the shoulders, demanding answers. Kendrick shoves them away. His designer white tuxedo, now stained with spilled red wine from a colliding waiter. I grip the microphone tightly, ensuring my voice dominates the rising panic. For years, my family has peddled a very specific narrative about me to all of you, I announce, projecting my voice over the screaming and the breaking glass. My mother Brenda and my father Thomas told you I was a pathetic spinster. They told you I worked a dead-end data entry job. They told you I was a bitter, jealous failure who could not stand the sight of my younger sister achieving the American dream. I step out from behind the audiovisual console, placing myself in the direct, undeniable center of the stage. The massive projection screen behind me still blazes with the undeniable evidence of their federal crimes. Allow me to formally introduce myself. I state, my posture perfectly rigid, my tone laced with absolute authority. I am not a data entry clerk. I am the founder and chief executive officer of a premier corporate forensic accounting firm headquartered right here in Chicago. I hunt white-collar criminals for a living. I track down hidden assets, I dismantle fraudulent corporate structures, and I hand federal prosecutors the exact evidence they need to lock up financial predators. The sheer shock on Ashley's face is immaculate. She stops screaming and just stares at me, her jaw hanging wide open, her brain completely unable to process the fact that the sister she tormented for decades is a highly successful corporate executive. Thomas drops his head into his hands, letting out a hollow, agonizing groan as the true magnitude of his catastrophic miscalculation finally dawns on him. He did not just insult his daughter. He handed his life savings to a con artist while relentlessly mocking the one person who could have saved him. I raise my hand, pointing a sharp, accusing finger toward the grand vaulted ceiling of the living room. Every single brick of this sprawling estate, every piece of imported marble you are walking on, and every drop of expensive champagne you are drinking belongs legally to me. I declare the absolute truth ringing through the room. This house was purchased using my stolen identity, my stolen tax records, and my stolen social security number. You are not standing in a symbol of Kendrick's success. You are standing inside an active federal crime scene. The guests start to physically recoil. Women in expensive evening gowns grab their designer purses and begin marching toward the front doors. Men are furiously dialing their own lawyers on their cell phones, realizing their recent investments are completely gone. The glamorous high society gender reveal party has instantly mutated into a panicked, desperate evacuation. I turn my attention directly to Kendrick, who is now trapped near the center of the room, sweating profusely, his eyes darting around like a hunted animal. And that man right there is no millionaire, I say, ensuring the microphone catches every syllable of his destruction. That man is a broke, desperate fraudster who could not even qualify for a basic credit card without stealing my financial history. He is currently drowning in $5 million of federal debt. His entire cryptocurrency empire is a hallucination. He used the stolen retirement funds of elderly victims to lease the cars in the driveway and buy the clothes on his back. I shift my gaze to my parents, who are now standing completely isolated as their country club friends actively turn their backs on them. And my parents, the people who happily called me a disappointment, just funded his pathetic illusion. I continue mercilessly. Thomas and Brenda proudly handed him every single penny of their retirement accounts. They blew their entire future, their entire financial security into thin air just to maintain this sickening facade of superiority. They are completely and totally bankrupt. Brenda lets out a guttural, horrifying wail. She drops to her knees on the marble floor, clawing at her own hair, her perfect socialite image entirely shattered. Ashley is hyperventilating, clutching her pregnant belly, screaming at Kendrick to tell everyone I am lying. But Kendrick has no lies left to tell. The gig is entirely up. His ego, the only thing he actually values, has just been publicly executed in front of the most elite crowd in the city. His intense fear suddenly crystallizes into pure, unadulterated rage. He looks up at me, standing on the stage, the architect of his total annihilation. The veins in his neck bulge. His hands curl into tight, violent fists. He realizes his life is over. He realizes he is going to federal prison, and he decides he is going to take me down with him. I am going to kill you, Kendrick roars, his voice tearing through the chaotic room. He charges. He shoves an elderly woman out of his way, sending her crashing into a catering table. He knocks over a towering floral arrangement, his eyes locked onto me with murderous intent. He sprints toward the stage, his heavy footsteps thudding against the floorboards. Several men try to grab his arms, but his adrenaline-fueled rage makes him impossible to hold back. He throws a violent punch, clearing his path to the steps of the DJ booth. I do not flinch. I do not take a single step backward. I stand my ground, staring down the pathetic, violent criminal who thought he could use me as his sacrificial lamb. He leaps onto the first step of the stage, raising his fist to strike my face. At that exact fraction of a second, a sound rips through the thick, tense air of the mansion. It is loud, piercing, and entirely unmistakable. The deafening, synchronized wail of multiple police sirens erupts right outside the front doors. Brilliant flashes of red and blue light violently pierce through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating Kendrick's terrified face. The heavy mahogany doors do not just open, they are violently breached. The booming sound of tactical boots hitting the imported Italian marble floor instantly drowns out Kendrick's roar of rage. Federal agents in full tactical gear flood the grand foyer, their presence commanding absolute submission. The flashing red and blue lights from the cruisers outside cast frantic, strobing shadows across the panic-stricken faces of the wealthy guests. Kendrick freezes mid-strike. His fist is suspended in the air just inches from my face. The sheer, paralyzing terror in his eyes is absolute. He realizes instantly that his reign of delusion is over. Special Agent Harrison leads the charge, his federal badge gleaming under the light of the crystal chandeliers. Federal agents. Harrison shouts, his voice echoing like thunder through the cavernous living room. Get on the ground right now. Kendrick does not comply immediately. His arrogant brain simply cannot process the catastrophic reality of this moment. He is completely frozen by the shock of his own destruction. But the authorities do not wait for his compliance. Two undercover agents, the exact men who had been seamlessly posing as catering staff, handing out imported champagne just minutes ago, flank him from behind. They grab his arms, twisting them expertly, and slam his chest hard against the polished hardwood of the stage. The sickening crunch of his expensive, fraudulently purchased gold watch shattering against the floorboards is the perfect soundtrack to his financial execution. Detective Reynolds steps forward, snapping heavy steel handcuffs around Kendrick's wrists. The sharp metallic click rings out with devastating finality. Kendrick groans, his face pressed humiliatingly against the floor, his custom-tailored white tuxedo completely ruined by dirt and spilled wine. Agent Harrison stands over him, exuding absolute federal authority. "You are under arrest for multi-million-dollar wire fraud conspiracy to commit fraud and felony identity theft," Harrison declares for the entire room to hear. "You have the right to remain silent, and looking at the evidence we just seized, I highly suggest you use it." The reality of the handcuffs finally breaks the spell of shock over my sister. Ashley lets out a guttural, ear-piercing scream. She hikes up the skirt of her heavily sequined maternity gown and frantically waddles toward the stage. "Get your hands off my husband!" she shrieks, her voice cracking with pure, unadulterated hysteria. "He is a wealthy entrepreneur. You are making a massive mistake. You are just targeting him because he is a successful black man. My sister set him up because she is a jealous psychopath." She tries to physically grab Agent Harrison's arm, but a female federal agent swiftly intercepts her, pushing her back with a firm, uncompromising hand. "Ma'am, step back immediately, or you will be placed under arrest for interfering with a federal investigation," the agent warns coldly. Realizing the federal agents are completely immune to her performative outrage, Ashley violently pivots toward the sea of terrified guests. She looks at the country club elites, the wealthy neighbors, and my parents' supposedly powerful friends. These are the exact people she spent months trying to impress. "Do something." Ashley wails, her face streaked with ruined makeup, tears, and sweat. "Call your lawyers. You all know us. You know we are good, honest people. Please, you have to stop them from taking him." The reaction from the crowd is immediate and utterly devastating. Nobody steps forward to help her. Nobody pulls out a smartphone to call a high-priced defense attorney. Instead, the entire room collectively steps backward. The wealthy men who had been eagerly drinking Kendrick's premium champagne just 20 minutes ago now look at him like he is a diseased animal. The women in their designer gowns clutch their expensive purses tightly and avert their eyes in profound, undisguised disgust. Aunt Linda physically shields herself behind a marble pillar, completely refusing to even look at the niece she had so aggressively defended on social media just days prior. The people Ashley sacrificed my identity to impress are looking at her with absolute revulsion. They do not see a tragic, persecuted mother. They see a desperate accessory to a massive federal Ponzi scheme who helped steal their retirement funds to pay for her extravagant lifestyle. Two tactical agents haul Kendrick up from the floor. He looks incredibly pathetic. His arrogant swagger has completely evaporated into the cold air. His legs tremble so violently he can barely stand under his own power. He does not look at his screaming wife. He does not look at the angry mob of investors he actively defrauded. He looks directly at me. I am standing perfectly still on the stage, my arms crossed comfortably over my emerald green blazer. I do not gloat. I do not sneer. I simply give him a slow, cold, acknowledging nod. He knows exactly who orchestrated this flawless, inescapable takedown. The agents march him off the stage and down the center aisle of the sprawling living room. The wealthy guests part aggressively to avoid touching him, treating him like toxic waste. The walk from the stage to the front doors is long, agonizing, and highly public. It is the ultimate walk of shame. Ashley follows closely behind him, sobbing hysterically, begging the agents to let her ride in the police cruiser, but they completely ignore her chaotic theatrics. The sheer volume of the federal raid is staggering to witness. More agents pour into the house, securing the exits, confiscating laptops, and seizing physical assets. They begin placing federal evidence tags on the expensive artwork, the imported furniture, and the high-end electronics. Everything Kendrick bought with stolen money is now federal evidence. The grand gender reveal party has been entirely consumed by a massive government asset seizure. Ashley watches in absolute horror as a tactical agent unplugs her massive, expensive projection system and tags it with a bright red evidence sticker. Her entire fabricated reality is being dismantled piece by piece in front of a live, highly critical audience. "You cannot take our things," Ashley cries out, dropping heavily to her knees on the cold marble floor. "I am pregnant. I need a safe home for my baby. You are destroying a family." She looks back up at the crowd, her hands clasped together in a desperate, pathetic prayer. "Please, someone help me. We threw this beautiful party for you." An older gentleman, one of my father's former business associates, who had personally wired $50,000 to Kendrick's offshore account just days ago, steps forward from the retreating crowd. He does not offer a hand to help Ashley up. He looks down at her kneeling on the floor, his face twisted with pure, unfiltered contempt. "You stole my pension!" He spits out, his voice dripping with venom. "I hope they lock your husband under the jail, and I hope they take you right along with him." He turns his back on her and marches out the front door. His departure triggers a massive, panicked exodus. The guests flood out of the mansion, rushing to their luxury cars to escape the radioactive fallout of this criminal enterprise. They leave Ashley kneeling entirely alone on the cold marble floor, completely abandoned by the high society she sacrificed her own soul to join. I watch the entire spectacle from my elevated position on the stage. The sweet, intoxicating flavor of absolute justice coats my tongue. My sister thought she could use her pregnancy as an impenetrable shield. She thought she could weaponize fake victimhood to steal my life and destroy my career. She is currently experiencing the brutal, uncompromising reality of federal consequences. Her manipulative tears do not work on FBI agents. Her toxic gaslighting tactics are completely useless against a flawless forensic audit. She is stripped bare, entirely exposed, and totally alone in a house that the government is actively seizing. The illusion of her perfect, wealthy suburban life has been violently ripped away, leaving nothing but the pathetic criminal truth behind. The flashing red and blue lights from the federal cruisers outside finally begin to fade as the transport vehicles pull away from the sprawling estate, taking Kendrick to a federal holding facility. Inside the grand living room, the chaotic energy of the fleeing wealthy guests has been replaced by the cold, methodical efficiency of federal agents. They are moving through the mansion with clinical precision, placing bright red seizure tags on the imported Italian leather sofas, the massive flat-screen televisions, and the grand piano Ashley had proudly displayed in the corner. Ashley is still crumpled on the imported marble floor, her sequined maternity gown pooling around her as she sobs hysterically, watching her entire fabricated reality being legally dismantled and boxed up as federal evidence. But my eyes are not on my sister. My gaze drops to the base of the stage, where the true architects of my childhood misery are finally facing the catastrophic consequences of their own actions. Thomas and Brenda have not moved since the financial flowchart illuminated the projection screen. They are standing utterly paralyzed in front of the undeniable digital proof of their total financial annihilation. The screen still blazes with the exact banking documents showing the maximum capacity home equity line of credit they took out on their suburban house. It still displays the crippling tax penalties they willingly swallowed to liquidate their entire retirement portfolios. The shock wears off, and the crushing weight of absolute poverty hits them simultaneously. Thomas, a man who has spent his entire life projecting an aura of untouchable arrogance and superiority, physically crumbles. His knees buckle. He staggers forward, his expensive suit suddenly looking 2 sizes too large for his deflating frame. He catches himself against the edge of the stage, his breathing shallow and rapid. Brenda follows him, her legs shaking so violently she practically trips over her own designer heels. Her carefully sprayed hair is a mess, and her face is a portrait of pure, unadulterated terror. They stumble toward me, There is absolutely no trace of the smug, condescending parents who stood in my apartment just days ago and demanded I move into a basement to serve their golden child. Brenda reaches the edge of the stage and lunges forward. Her trembling hands desperately claw at my emerald green blazer, trying to physically grip my wrists. I take a swift, calculated step backward, forcing her hands to grasp nothing but empty air. "Kelsey, please, Brenda," wails her voice, a shrill, broken rasp that echoes over the sound of agents packing boxes. "You have to help us. You have to tell the federal agents to stop. Tell them to give the money back. We did not know. We had absolutely no idea he was a criminal. We just wanted to help your sister secure her future. You cannot let us lose everything. We are your parents. We gave you life. You cannot just stand there and watch us lose our home." Thomas nods frantically, actual tears pooling in his eyes. He looks up at me, his pride completely evaporated. He is begging. A man who never once apologized to me is now weeping at my feet. "Kelsey, listen to your mother." Thomas pleads, his voice cracking with desperation. "We are old. We have worked our entire adult lives for that retirement fund. If the bank takes our house, we will be out on the streets. We have absolutely nothing left. You are a successful executive. You have a massive company. You have millions of dollars. You can fix this. You can pay off the bank to save our house. You can hire the best corporate lawyers to get our money back from those offshore accounts. You have to protect your family." Brenda turns and points a shaking finger at Ashley, who is hyperventilating on the floor, while an agent tags the designer rug beneath her. "Look at your little sister," Brenda cries out instinctively, weaponizing her favorite manipulative tool one last time. "She is pregnant with your niece. Her husband is going to a federal penitentiary. She has no money, no job, and now the government is seizing her house. You cannot put a pregnant woman on the street. You cannot abandon your own blood when she needs you the most. You have to let her move into your penthouse. You have to support her. It is your duty as her older sister." I look down at them. I search my heart for an ounce of pity, a shred of daughterly obligation, or a flicker of sympathy. I feel absolutely nothing. I look at the two people who proudly handed my identity to a con artist and literally ordered me to take the fall for his felonies. "My duty," I repeat, my voice cutting through their pathetic sobs like a freshly sharpened blade. "You are standing in the wreckage of a multi-million-dollar federal wire fraud case. A case you actively and willingly funded, and you still have the sheer unmitigated audacity to demand my resources." I lean down slightly, ensuring they hear every single syllable clearly over the noise of the federal raid. "You did not lose your money because of a simple mistake. You lost your money because of your overwhelming toxic greed. You wanted a guaranteed 30% return. You wanted to brag to your country club friends about your brilliant millionaire son-in-law. You threw your life savings into a black hole because you thought you were vastly superior to everyone else. But you are rich." Thomas sobs, gripping the edge of the stage. "You can easily afford to bail us out. We offered to let you live in our basement when we thought you were going bankrupt." I let out a cold, sharp laugh. "Yes, you did. You told me that a ruined credit score would not kill me because I was a single childless spinster. You told me I could just work a retail job for a few years until the bankruptcy fell off my record. I suggest you take your own phenomenal financial advice, Dad. A ruined retirement will not kill you. You can easily find a job as a greeter at a local hardware store." I straighten my posture, looking at Brenda's horrified, weeping face. "And as for Ashley, she is not my responsibility. You created that entitled monster. You enabled her delusions. You taught her that she could steal, lie, and manipulate her way through life without ever facing a single consequence. Well, the consequences have finally arrived to collect their dues. I am not opening my checkbook. I am not opening my penthouse doors. You demanded that I break my lease to serve your golden child. I highly suggest you go start packing your own bags because the bank is coming for your suburban castle, and they are not going to be nearly as forgiving as you thought I was." Actually, I need to correct myself. I say, my voice cutting cleanly through the sounds of federal agents cataloging the seized luxury assets. "The bank is not coming for your house. Thomas and Brenda look up from the floor, a sudden desperate flash of hope igniting in their tear-stained eyes. They actually believe I am going to save them. They genuinely think my corporate resources have already been deployed to freeze their foreclosure. They think the familial bond has somehow survived their ultimate betrayal. I reach into the inner pocket of my emerald blazer and pull out one final neatly folded legal document. It is not printed on standard paper. It is printed on the heavy watermarked cardstock of my own forensic accounting firm. I step down from the stage, walking across the imported marble, and hand the document directly to my father. Thomas takes it with violently trembling hands. Brenda leans over his shoulder, her terrified eyes darting across the dense legal paragraphs. I watch as the momentary hope entirely drains from their faces, replaced by a level of comprehension so devastating it physically buckles my father's knees. He cannot speak. He just stares at the signature line, his mouth opening and closing in absolute horrified silence. Let me explain exactly what you are holding, I state, making sure my voice projects clearly over the chaos of the room. When a major financial institution realizes they have issued a maximum capacity home equity line of credit to an individual deeply entangled in a federal Ponzi scheme investigation, they panic. They want that toxic high-risk asset off their books immediately. They will quietly sell that bad debt to private holding firms for pennies on the dollar just to clear their ledgers and avoid federal scrutiny. I take a slow, deliberate step closer, invading their personal space, just as they have invaded my peace for my entire life. Through an anonymous corporate investment fund, controlled entirely by my firm, I bought your distressed debt, I explain, watching the absolute destruction of their reality settle permanently into their eyes. I bought your mortgage. I bought your home equity line of credit. The bank does not own your house anymore. I do. Brenda lets out a sharp, breathless gasp. She looks at me as if I am a stranger, a terrifying entity she has never truly known. You stood in my kitchen just days ago, I continue, my tone completely devoid of mercy. You told me to shut my mouth and take the blame for federal wire fraud so I could be permitted to live in your damp basement. You told me I should be grateful to serve your golden child. Well, right now, as your sole and legal creditor, I am formally serving you with a notice of eviction. You have exactly 30 days to pack up whatever the federal government does not seize and vacate my property. Ashley, who has been listening from the floor, lets out a fresh, hysterical scream. She covers her ears entirely, unable to process the absolute ruin of her privileged existence. A real family protects each other, I say, delivering the final fatal blow to their delusional dynasty. A real family does not throw their own child into a federal prison just to save a pathetic fraudster. You made your bed. Now you get to sleep in it. I turn my back on them for the absolute last time. I do not listen to their weeping. I do not acknowledge their desperate, pathetic apologies echoing behind me. I walk past the federal agents, past the ruined white tuxedo of my brother-in-law, and straight out the massive mahogany front doors. The crisp, freezing Chicago air hits my face, and I take a deep, cleansing breath. I am completely, irreversibly free. The justice system moves with a brutal, uncompromising efficiency. Within 6 months, the grand illusion is entirely erased from the earth. Kendrick tries to negotiate a plea deal, but the forensic evidence my team provided to Special Agent Harrison is far too devastating. He is convicted of multiple counts of federal wire fraud and felony identity theft. The judge sentences him to 15 years in a federal penitentiary without the slightest possibility of early parole. His fake cryptocurrency empire is dismantled, and he is reduced to a simple inmate number, stripped of all his flashy gold chains and arrogant swagger. The fallout for my family is exactly as catastrophic as they deserved. With their retirement funds completely vaporized and their suburban mansion legally repossessed by my firm, Thomas and Brenda are forced into absolute bankruptcy. Their wealthy country club friends completely cut all ties, treating them like social pariahs. The people they spent decades trying to impress erase them from their contact lists overnight. They are forced to rent a cramped, dilapidated two-bedroom apartment in a highly undesirable neighborhood on the far outskirts of the city. Thomas, a man who once bragged about his high-level executive consulting, is forced to take a minimum-wage job working the cash register at a local hardware store just to keep the lights on. Brenda spends her days trapped in the tiny apartment, completely isolated, her entire identity as a wealthy suburban matriarch, completely destroyed. Ashley, heavily pregnant and entirely abandoned by her so-called millionaire husband, has absolutely nowhere else to go. She moves into the tiny, depressing apartment with my bankrupt parents. The golden child who once sneered at my career and bragged about building a legacy is now sleeping on a cheap, sagging mattress in a room that smells of mildew. She has no luxury cars. She has no custom nursery. She spends her days arguing bitterly with Brenda and Thomas, the cramped walls of the apartment echoing with their constant toxic blame shifting. They are trapped together in a prison of their own making, drowning in the absolute poverty they so casually wished upon me. I do not visit them. I do not call. I block their phone numbers, redirect their emails to a junk folder, and erase them from my existence entirely. They are ghosts to me now. The sun is setting over the stunning Chicago skyline. I am standing on the private, expansive balcony of my downtown penthouse, the city lights reflecting against the sleek glass of the surrounding skyscrapers. The evening air is cool and refreshing. I am wearing a stunning tailored silk dress. The business I built from the ground up just closed its most profitable quarter in history. My team is thriving, my reputation as a relentless forensic accountant is completely unmatched, and my life is entirely my own. I hold a crystal glass of incredibly expensive, perfectly aged red wine. I take a slow, deliberate sip, letting the rich flavor coat my tongue. I look out over the glowing city, a fierce, unbreakable smile curving my lips. I pulled the toxic weed of my family out by its very roots, and the soil is finally clean. I survived their cruelty, I outsmarted their greed, and I secured my absolute victory. This glorious, peaceful, and extraordinarily successful life belongs entirely to me. Society conditions us to believe that family is an unbreakable bond, a sacred tie that demands our unconditional loyalty, no matter the catastrophic cost. But the profound lesson hidden within the wreckage of this story is that shared DNA is never a free pass for emotional abuse, malicious exploitation, or absolute financial ruin. When the very people who are supposed to protect you actively decide to use you as a human shield to fund their own greed and maintain their fragile social status, the concept of family becomes nothing more than a weaponized illusion. You cannot heal people who genuinely believe their toxicity is justified, and you cannot save people who are fiercely determined to sink their own ship. True empowerment begins the exact moment you stop seeking validation from those who are fundamentally committed to minimizing your worth. You do not owe your peace, your hard-earned resources, or your personal freedom to anyone who treats your existence as a disposable asset to be drained at their convenience. Setting ironclad boundaries is not an act of cruelty or malice. It is an act of profound necessary self-preservation. When you finally strip away the heavy layers of emotional manipulation and look objectively at the cold, undeniable facts of how toxic people treat you, your path forward becomes brilliantly clear. The ultimate victory is never about sinking to their level, screaming the loudest, or playing the tragic victim in a public arena. It is about quietly building an unshakable, independent foundation for yourself. It is about mastering your own craft, securing your own future, and stepping aside to let the natural, devastating consequences of their arrogance be their own undoing. You construct a life so spectacularly successful and so legally bulletproof that their toxic delusions simply shatter against your reality. Please share your own experiences with setting boundaries in the comments below, and hit the subscribe button if you are ready to hear more stories about breaking toxic chains and reclaiming your absolute power.